This is Talk Sports Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham, and I'm delighted to say that for this special World Cup edition of the Two Mikes, Mike Parry is here with me in the studio. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Yeah, very good morning to you as well, Mike. How delightful to start the show together, because it means that I can put you on the straight and narrow path from the start of the show, that you don't go wandering off on some tangent and totally lose the audience until I have to come in and put you back on the straight and narrow.
As I said, I'm slightly worried. There is a full moon out there. There is this massive solar flare. All right, no howling, please. There is a massive, all right, quiet. Your beard is looking a little bit more bushy, actually.
I can't help that.
It's some kind of wolf thing going on. But, yeah, there is a huge solar flare that could be hitting the Earth at some point over the next 24 hours as well, which makes Friday the 13th doubly difficult, because it might put all your phones out of order, it might put all the GPS navigational thing. You won't be able to find your way home in your smoking Mercedes.
Yeah, we've got to really look after the audience over the next 3 hours, Mike, because what you're saying is not in any way mythology. For instance, I've got a report here, which I was studying just before I came in. Listen to this. For the superstitious amongst us, Friday the 13th is a day notorious for bad luck. But, and this is the but, motorists taking the road today could be particularly cursed because historical evidence shows, collision claims increased by 13%.
Right.
On the unluckiest day of days, Friday the 13th, according to an insurance company who has researched it. Aviva said Friday the 13th sees more bumps and shunts than other days, no matter what time of the year it falls. It notes in a report, the age-old superstition about falling prey to bad luck on Friday the 13th does, in fact, ring true for motorists.
It is true,
How about that?
I know, it's amazing,
How about
isn't it?
that? I mean, we've discovered something here,
and also,
which is absolutely invaluable to the way that people are going to conduct themselves for the rest of today.
Exactly, and also, if you're using some kind of sat-nav device or other, it might get knocked out by the solar flare, so you might be very careful about following your sat-nav today as well.
I find it very difficult, sat-navs, you know. I think they're more nuisance than they're worth.
Yeah, I think they are too.
And I'll tell you why, because if you are trying to negotiate a sat-nav in mid-journey rather than at the start of the journey, I think that you are in more danger of crashing your car than you are, A, if you're drunk, and B, if you're using your mobile phone.
And also, if you know kind of roughly where you're going, the only real reason you need the sat-nav is right at the end if you want to try and find a specific house number. But apart from that, you know, there's no reason to do it.
The thing is, in my experience, you don't get the specific house. What you get is you have arrived at the end of your journey.
Right.
That's what mine says,
or
your journey is complete or something. But that's when you turn into the road of the building you're trying to get to. Now, if it was a house number,
the postcode should tell you that, shouldn't it?
What?
The postcode is specific usually to wherever you want to go.
Well, I've found lately that if it's a house number, you can spot it yourself anyway, right? Yeah. But if it's a business or something like that, or if it's a golf course or something, and it's only got one entrance and it's a 500-acre site or something like that, the minute you get to the boundaries of the place, the voice on the sat-nav says you have reached your final destination.
And you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. That's all very well, but where's the blinking entrance to this golf course?
Well, exactly. And also, what sat-navs do is it makes people forget to read signs. It makes people forget how they used to actually get places before they had this thing.
Using their own intelligence.
Exactly. Anyway, we'll talk some more about that in a minute.
I will talk about that in a minute.
I thought you were going to put me right on the football, because I thought it was a fantastic game of football.
Yeah.
I'd called it as a 2-2 draw, I have to say, early on. But after 5 minutes, I'd said, don't be surprised if you see Croatia getting a shocker here, some kind of shock result. Within seconds, they scored. It was incredible.
Well, they did score, but didn't that just illustrate the problems Brazil are going to have with their own defence? Yeah. I mean, both the fullbacks are so far up the pitch, they looked like they were the striker and dual strikers. Right. It was ludicrous, and although it was an own goal, technically, I mean, it was just a shambolic defensive performance. Now, of course they won tonight, and Brazil will be happy, but my image of Scolari is not... Big Phil.
No, apparently isn't that big.
Big Phil. No, he's not that big. He's not that big.
So he's called Big Phil as a kind of a joke.
He is, it's a bit of a joke. I mean,
it's like me calling you Big Mike.
No, it's not. It's like me calling you Little Mike, because you're a big, gross,
Thank you.
bag of a
Careful.
man. Yeah, I was going to say, It's a sort of, what's the word? It's an ironic sort of, it's like when you call...
It's a Mickey take, isn't it?
It's like when you call a tall guy shorty, you know what I mean? Or a short guy lofty, or a big man, as they say in Scotland. Hey, big man.
Well, everybody's big man up there. Yeah.
Everyone's a big man. Anyway, the point of my story is...
what is the point of your story?
Yeah, well,
and how many times are you going to say the point of my story is?
Well, I have to sometimes to point out to you that I'm trying to find the point of the story. Now, what I'm going to say is this. The image I have of Big Phil is not of the man who lifted the World Cup in, when was it, 2002?
The last time they won it, yeah.
Was it 2002? Yeah, it was. 2006 was in Germany. I went to that one.
That was Italy, wasn't it?
That was Italy, when they headbutt
2007 to was South Korea,
Sudan.
wasn't it?
South Korea, that's right, yeah. So, my image of Big Phil is not the man who lifted the World Cup. My image of Big Phil is the man who almost burst into tears on a regular basis in the dugout at Chelsea when he had his failed 6 months there. My image of Big Phil is the man who actually bottled the England job after half of the Fleet Street press pack chased him to Portugal with Brian Barwick when we thought he was going to be appointed England manager and then said, I can't take all this. Well, he didn't say it because he doesn't speak English, but he, you know, it was in Portuguese. Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Well, you'd have been all right with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd have been all right.
Many languages.
I'd have been all right with that. I'd have understood that. But what I'm saying is, he looked to me tonight frightened, particularly after the first goal went in. He thought the wrath of the nation is now going to fall down on my head and my shoulders. You know what I mean?
Because when you watch them, I mean, I thought it was a fantastic start to the game. The national anthems were. I know you've raved on about the English national anthem. Everybody should sing it in a very, very a passionate way. I've never seen anybody singing their national anthem the way Brazil did. It was the most magnificent thing I think I've ever seen at any football match ever.
Well, I think that's a massive exaggeration.
No, it isn't.
Of course
it is not.
Well,
you tell me when it was better than that, where they start the first verse, every single player is so animated, so emotional, tears in their eyes, they cut the music, they cut their own voices, and the whole stadium then sings the second verse.
Absolutely.
It's magnificent.
Yeah, it's obvious to me what happened, but you can't see through the cracks
what do you mean?
Like I can. Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened, right? Outside that stadium, the Brazilian people are rioting in the streets.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
No,
they're
not.
They,
200 people outside the stadium, some of whom, as far as I'm concerned, look an awful lot like those anti-globalisation types.
And you didn't see rubber bullets being fired?
Yes, I did. I saw that.
And you didn't see stun grenades being thrown?
How many people live in Sao Paulo?
How many people are about, at the last count, 21 million?
21 million.
Yeah.
200 people were outside the stadium.
Well, anyway.
You do the maths.
Anyway, what I'm saying is there were riots going on in Rio de Janeiro as well. So the government have got riots going on all over the place. They're in a stadium which might have collapsed because one of the stands was a temporary stand, wasn't it? Because they hadn't finished building the stadium. Well, they didn't know this before the game, right? So the government have got that. They've got the potential problem of the stadium. They've got riots outside.
Mind you, they did shut down the airport a few hours before the game.
Shut down the airport a few hours before the game. England possibly protesting about a pitch which actually looks a bit better than we thought it was going to be.
It's very dry, though, apparently.
Very dry and sandy and all that.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is the government and the chief government propaganda officer will have rung up Big Phil, and said, Big Phil, we want to make sure...
that's what they call him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Hello, Big Phil.
Big Phil, government here. Get players, sing, let's sing.
And the man's going, why is the Japanese government ringing me?
That's right. Yeah. Get players, sing national anthem, Phil. And so,
no, but it was
around the world. Around the world, you've got all these Brazilian players all standing, ramrod upright,
no, they were
singing
not.
the national anthem, along with the crowd, by the way.
The crowd was magnificent. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
you would never get out of Wembley.
So what I'm saying is, this completely took the focus off all the downside of what's going on in Brazil at the moment, and absolutely exemplified the upside, which is a good propaganda way of doing it.
Well,
but
it's a good way to do it. Period.
The last time I saw that sort of thing happen was in a country which was, a dictatorship in which you're told you will sing, almost like you've got a gun at your back.
I think you've got totally the wrong end of the stick there. Because I'll tell you why I think you're wrong. Because yes, there are problems in Brazil. Yes, the teachers have been on strike. But looking at some of those people who were fighting with the riot police yesterday, those are the guys that wear the handkerchiefs over their faces. That's the anti-globalisation one.
I think you're probably right.
Those are the people that are the extremists who get into these in situations in countries, in all countries of the world. And some of them are Brazilian, some of them are not. And it's a very small number. I'm not saying that it should be discounted, and I'm not saying that Brazil should not be given a hard time for the way that FIFA have gone through all of this. Try and pay attention instead of making stupid noises. Because there'll be a quiz later.
I'm not, but you're rambling on.
Well, I'm talking. It's called a talk show. It's what we do.
You see, you don't know when to stop talking.
Really? That sounds pretty good coming from you.
Start rambling, you
Anyway, my point is this.
Brazil, the rambler.
The Brazilian crowd were magnificent. But football is a religion in that country, okay? And in the end, FIFA will come and go.
Football's a religion.
The World Cup will come and go, and things will not improve in Brazil. We get that. However, I don't think you should focus so much on the negativity around the football.
Never heard that expression before.
What?
Football's a religion in Brazil.
Well, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm saying in their country it is a religion.
I'm taking the mickey out of you.
Are you?
It's the biggest cliche in the history of the world of football speak.
Right. Well, I'm surprised you haven't uttered it then, because you normally utter about 58 cliches per minute.
Oh, is that right?
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. We're coming live to you from London. Coming next, we're going to come live to you from Brazil. We'll find out from Andrew McKenna what's really going on. This is Talk Sport. The World Cup has started, and it started with a bang. Brazil 3, Croatia 1. Perhaps a bit unlucky for the Croatians, but Brazil have certainly made their mark on the tournament. They were out to win it, whatever Mr. Mike Porky Parry says about the unhappiness going on around the country and the rioting and the striking and all of that. We're going to go live now to Andrew McKenna, who's in Salvador on the northeast coast of Brazil, where the Spain-Holland game is going to take place tonight, right here live on Talk Sport. Andrew, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
No problem. How are we, chaps?
Yeah, very well indeed. I saw you tweeted out a little bit earlier on that you had no idea what time it was, basically. Are you still sort of suffering from being pushed from pillar to post?
Well, no, it's more the fact that it just takes so long to actually get anything done here. We flew from Rio this morning, and, I mean, the traffic in Rio is sort of legendary, and it's about probably 20 kilometres from the centre of town out to the airport. Our flight was at, 5 to 11, and we were told leave at 7:30 in the morning just to make sure you get there ahead of the rush hour traffic, because otherwise you'll miss your flight. It just takes forever to do anything around here, and then you get to Salvador, and the traffic is probably worse. Fortunately, we had what I can only assume is a relative of Ayrton Senna's driving our taxi, and we managed to do probably an hour's journey in about 37 minutes.
Oh, that sounds good. Well, Brazil's Salvador is known as apparently as the capital of happiness in the country, so I don't know what that's going to mean. But there's an interesting statistic that the Spain-Holland is the first time the opening round of a group game has been the exact same fixture as the last World Cup final.
It is indeed, and of course Spain are the defending champions, and they've actually set the record for bringing the most players back from a squad from that successful campaign. They've got 14 of the squad from South Africa 4 years ago with them here, and 9 of the starters from the World Cup final itself. So they've certainly got continuity. The question is, are they playing as well as what they were then? There's a general perception that they're just starting to slightly go downwards. Are Holland good enough to exploit that? Well, a lot of people seem to think no. You know, this is the nation that basically created the 4-3-3 formation. They've been playing it for 40, 50, 60 years. And all of a sudden, 6 months ago, Louis van Gaal decides, no, we're not good enough at the moment to play that. Let's play 5 at the back, something that they'd never done. And Ron Vlaar, the Aston Villa central defender, is the most capped defender in the Dutch squad with 22 appearances. So that tells you that maybe this Dutch squad isn't quite as good as previous ones.
Andrew, if Spain are... And by the way, Macca, great to see you out there, pal, and you do a fantastic job, I know. Can I just say, Macca, if Spain are the biggest contenders to Brazil's crown, or apparent crown, or heirs to the crown, what's Brazil going to be like if Spain do overcome Brazil? Because old Big Phil, you know, who's supposed to be the national hero, the man in charge of the Brazilian team, and you're living amongst Brazilians at the moment, he looks like a bit of a weak and vacillating individual to me at these games, you know, in a state of constant panic.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, Andy knows what I'm talking about, Macca knows what I'm talking about, and he's in a state of constant panic, and of course, if he fails, he will be lucky to make it to the exit door of the stadium in which he fails.
In a strange way, Mike, you do make an excellent point, and that is...
Don't encourage him, Macca, for heaven's sake.
Every tournament, you need the hosts to go a long way into it, because otherwise you are relying on the tourists to provide the atmosphere, the excitement. You know, football in Brazil is so enormous. This team has to go a long way into it, because you do wonder what will be the reaction if they go out. You know, you've mentioned the problems, the societal problems. I mean, as I mentioned, we flew from Rio this morning. We got to the airport to find that there was a protest going on at the airport. You know, there is quite a big anti-feeling, although it was very noticeable. Myself and John Norman, the producer, had to go to the ground where tomorrow's commentary is coming from this evening, and we actually were making our way back as the game had kicked off, and there was nobody on the streets. I mean, the roads were literally empty, and the people were stood, well, there was no room in the bars, they were actually stood on the pavements watching the game through the windows. So, in terms of percentage population, I would say about 98% of the population in Salvador were clearly inside watching the game.
And that's what it seems.
TV.
That's what it seems to me as well. That there were some quite sizable demos outside the Confederations Cup games, and so much so that sometimes some of them were actually late getting started. But as you say, Macca, it seems as though the large part of the populace, anyway, is watching the football, and maybe some small size demonstrations are going on. And looking at some of that stuff that was going on in Sao Paulo yesterday, it looked to me like the cops were dealing with more sort of anti-globalisation types than anything else.
I tell you what, you are not short of police on the ground here. There's the local police, the civil police, there's military police. They are everywhere. And even when they're parked up by the side of the road, just watching the world go by, the flashing lights are on the roof of the car. The red lights are continually going, and you are left in no doubt that the emergency services are there or thereabouts. Some of the time, you kind of wonder what they're actually doing, but there is a very strong presence. You know that they're around, and I think that as much as I think that's more to do with the demonstrations than probably the football at this stage. Just to say to people, look, if you want to try it, you can feel free to try it. But the general motto is round here, from what we were told before we left, was the police in this part of the world will act first and ask questions later. So it's probably not best to try it with them.
I'm sure they will. Andy, just, Macca, concentrating on the Spain-Holland game, do you agree with me that Louis van Gaal, right, the boss of the Dutch team, should have stood down from being the boss of the Dutch team the moment he was made manager of Manchester United? Because it's obvious to everybody in the world of football he is now probably attempting to tap up a lot of those Dutch players, like, for instance, Arjen Robben, and get them to go to Manchester United. And if I was the head of the Premier League in England, I'd have appealed to the Dutch and said, you've got to sack this guy because you're going to be pilching all these players and taking them to Manchester United.
Well, what he did was he made it very clear that he is on Manchester United duty when this tournament finishes. Now, obviously, there is going to be some talking to players going on, whatever. I think that he has been around long enough to be able to separate the issues. I mean, look, in the room next to me at the moment, in the room next door is Stuart Pearce, who officially hasn't started work as Nottingham Forest manager, but I can tell you he spends a great deal of his
He's not going to be signing anyone from Holland, though, is he?
Exactly.
It's funny you should say that, but they did today. Not from the Dutch squad, but they did sign a Dutch player.
Sure, but you see my point.
They can separate it.
Yeah, but you see my point. The Davy Moyes problem was that he was Everton manager while he was heir apparent to Manchester United. The bitterness that caused at Everton, because he was trying to get some of the Everton players to go to United, is exactly what will be happening in the Dutch camp at the moment. Louis van Gaal has a responsibility to start working on improving Manchester United's team from the moment he accepted the job. He will be tapping these... Because I'm just trying to emphasise my point. He'll be tapping up these Dutch players one after the other, I would imagine. I'm alleging.
Well, I mean, there is an interesting point, of course, that he can't start work until they're knocked out of the tournament. Now, the final is the 13th of July. Now, that gives you 1 month till the Premier League starts, and you're well into you can be well into pre-season by that point, well into transfers being done. I mean, from a Manchester United point of view, Holland to not get through the group stages of this, and by the way, there are people here who feel they may not. Spain are generally regarded as the best side in this, but you've also got Chile, who are a very strong side. So it's possible that Holland could not get out of the group, and that, from a Manchester United point, is almost dream time. That's thank you very much, and he can get in and start doing work much earlier. As soon as he starts getting into the knockout stages, and then your worst case scenario is making semi-finals, because then you're guaranteed to have to play a third or fourth playoff, even if you lose. So you're then here to the final weekend of the tournament either way. That's not going to be ideal.
No, it certainly isn't. Macca, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Macca there reporting in from Salvador, which is on the northeast coast, as you probably well know, of Brazil.
Salvador.
It's the third biggest metropolitan area on the planet.
Salvador.
Yeah. Well, I know your language expertise will be put to the test later on.
Oh, really?
I've got a little Portuguese test for you
Oh,
coming
really?
up later on in
Well,
the show.
just because I told you about Portuguese sardines, you're trying to make out I'm an expert in Portugal.
No, you've already said you're an expert in Portuguese.
I didn't say that.
It's not Portugal where you're an expert in. They speak Portuguese in Brazil, you fool.
Yeah, I know that as well.
This is
I
Talk
was aware
Sports
of that.
Extra Time. He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham. More coming up next. This is Talk Sport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is here with me in the studio. Together we are the two Mikes. There will be a podcast out later on, of course. We've got lots to talk about, Mike. And, of course, coming up tomorrow night, England's opening game.
Absolutely.
Lots of papers going on still. What is likely to be the team. You're saying, and I'm agreeing with you, funnily enough, for once, that Ross Barkley should be in that team. The Mirror say they've got what they think is the team, but when you read into it, they don't, I think, really know any more than anybody else does.
Well, it's actually, this is a story under the byline of Oliver Holt.
Yeah.
And Ollie is a columnist, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And I'm not denigrating him. He's a great columnist.
Yeah.
He's an award-winning columnist. But his job's not to go out and seek news stories. So this gives it credibility because Ollie's clearly spoken to somebody.
Right.
Who's in a position to have advised him, and he's turned it into a news story, and that gives it more credence.
Well, what they're saying is if Welbeck is fit, then he will be in the side, which makes it look a bit defensive, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, go on, read that team out if Ollie's got it right.
Well, if he's got it right, it starts obviously at the back with Joe Hart.
Yeah.
It then goes to Leighton Baines, Cahill, Jagielka, Johnson, Gerard Henderson in the middle, then Welbeck, Rooney, Lallana, and Sturridge up front.
Yeah, OK. I totally agree with you. I think that's a negative team, particularly against Perla and the Azzurri.
Yeah.
Now, I have started the campaign months ago, weeks ago, if you like.
Right.
Weeks ago, months ago. But this week, I, started looking at a few tweets and people saying, well, it's not right, the time's not right for Barkley. I totally disagree.
I do
so
too.
I went a bit mad yesterday and said, Barkley must start, if you agree with me, and I got a well sport. But there's a much more influential voice in the world of football than mine.
Really?
Very much more influential
Surely
than
you're not going to admit to that.
mine will ever be, and that is Paul Scholes.
Yes.
Now, Paul Scholes has turned out to be a fantastic analyst.
He's upsetting a lot of people,
He is
isn't he?
upsetting a lot of people, and he turned out to be a fantastic analyst since he stepped down from football. Whereas in the old days, you couldn't get him to even address a microphone or give you an opinion
wouldn't
on
talk
anything.
at all, would he?
Wouldn't talk at all. Now he's popping up all over the place in TV studios. Now, what he's done is he's taken on the role of providing a blog for a betting company,
Yes.
OK? And guess what he says? You've got to pick the kids, Roy. This is Scholes' battle cry. Paul Scholes has begged Roy Hodgson to unleash his young stars in the jungle. England touched down in Manaus yesterday, so I'm reading this obviously from Manaus, thank you, from one or two this morning's news. Former England and Manchester United star Scholes wants Three Lions boss Hodgson to be brave in the Amazonian city and terrify the Italian defence by starting Ross Barkley, 20 years of age, and Raheem Sterling, 19 years of age. Scholes said, none of the big teams fear England in this World Cup. Let's give them something to worry about. Ross Barkley must start.
Yes.
I will repeat that. This is from Paul Scholes, who was known as the White Pele, who was known as the most influential midfield player in this country for a decade. He says Ross Barkley must start.
Yeah, and I don't think you can disagree with him because at the end of the day, also Raheem Sterling and Ross Barkley are not likely to be terribly well known by a lot of these other players, whereas they know Wayne
Absolutely
Rooney.
right.
You know, they know Welbeck really. They've played against him before. They might not know Sturridge quite so well either. But they know Gerrard. They know Lampard. They know all the kind of old guard, the so-called golden generation.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think Scholes is right. But looking at this team here, because we want to hear from people on this one, 08717 22 3344. Where would you put Ross Barkley and who would you take out then?
Well,
And Raheem Sterling for that matter.
you see, I'm surprised that Oxlade-Chamberlain is not in contention for this as well. Is that because he's not fit till the second game?
No, he won't be fit till the second game.
That's fine, OK. Well, the answer to that is, you think the negativity factor is Welbeck.
Yeah.
So you take Welbeck out, don't you?
Then you put Sterling in there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly,
So,
yeah.
but who would you take out to put Barkley in?
Well, I would take out Henderson.
Okay.
And put Barkley in there because he's great. You see,
But Henderson's had a good season too, hasn't he?
Well, yes, he has had a good season, but not as good as Ross Barkley, in my view. Certainly in the second half of the
Liverpool nearly
season.
won the league.
Yes, they did, but as an individual, Barkley's been more impressive. Let me just continue what Paul Scholes has said in his blog for a betting company. I was watching the England versus Ecuador friendly in an airport lounge a bit back from the screen, but I
You're not just going to read it out.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. But I focused on what was going. Barkley went on a run, and I thought to myself, bloody hell, is that Rooney? Barkley made me think of Wayne at Euro 2004. Barkley has no fear, which is backed up by some of his statistics at Everton last season. Now, you know, when you get that sort of endorsement from Paul Scholes, then you've got to listen. Roy Hodgson's got to listen. He's a former teacher. He's spent 2 years teaching in a very good sort of private school, so he knows that when a pupil becomes a master, the master must be listened to.
Yeah, well, that might work for you. I'm not sure it's going to work for Roy Hodgson, but we'll find out. We want to hear from you on this one. Should Ross Barkley start? Should Raheem Sterling start? I think the campaign should begin now. It should have begun a while ago, as Mike says, and I think most of the people would want it to happen. 08717 223344. Dave, the London taxi driver, says this, who sent this into 81089. He says the sat-navs are going to be knocked out later. God help anyone in an Uber car. And he says, great show. Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Uber? What's an Uber car?
Well, I'll tell you about it later on. It's what the big demos are all about. At the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right, wake up. This is TalkSport Extra Time. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is here with me. Together we are the two Mikes. It is Friday the 13th. There is a full moon out there, so be very, very careful. And just as if that wasn't enough to worry you, there is a massive solar flare storm possibly coming our way, which could, in all seriousness, actually knock out sat-navs. It could knock out all sorts of telecommunications and the internet as well. And I'll tell you something interesting. I was reading the story about it, right? And on Tuesday, I was over in Canary Wharf, and I could not get any kind of data service.
Canary Wharf in London, you're talking about?
Yeah, Canary Wharf in London.
Exactly,
Well, where else is Canary Wharf?
Well, 95% of our audience don't live in London, Mike, so I'm just trying to help them out with geographical
location.
location.
They don't know where Canary Wharf is?
I should imagine there are a lot of people in the northeast of England, maybe in the Lake
you think
District.
They're all simpletons in the
No.
Is that what you say?
In Lancashire and Yorkshire.
They don't know where Canary Wharf is?
Maybe in Warwickshire and Worcestershire, who don't know where Canary Wharf is. So instead of you assuming this metropolitan elite feeling that everybody...
People that listen to this show are very intelligent, okay? They're very well informed. Not least because they've been listening to this show for a long time.
A lot of them are brighter than you.
They may well be, but they all know where Canary Wharf is. Don't worry about that.
No, I'm just saying it is wholly ignorant to your audience to talk about things like Victoria Station, Waterloo Station, Canary Wharf, because you should say in London. Right. Because if I said to you, I tell you what, why don't we all go and have a curry next week in Lime Street? What would you say?
I'd say, well, I don't want to go to Liverpool, thanks.
Yeah, now you know where Lime Street is in Liverpool.
Because
does. No, they don't. I would say Lime Street, Liverpool, because I want to be
it's a massive train station
to our audience. Yeah, okay, all right. Well, supposing I said to you Upper Parliament Street, then I said, why don't we go to Upper Parliament Street next week? And
Upper Parliament Street where?
Well, exactly. It's in Liverpool, you see.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that.
No, you see, it's in Toxteth, so you didn't know it, did you?
I don't want to go there either.
Well, why not?
I don't want to go to Toxteth. They had riots there.
No, honestly, it's a really nice rebuilt area now.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. It's been completely refurbished and everything. Yeah, it's fine.
Well, and also, Upper Parliament Street is one of those streets that could be in any place where there's a parliament.
Well,
it could be Quebec, for all I know.
Could be.
Anyway, never mind all
Granger Street. Where's Granger Street?
I have no idea.
Newcastle.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the big street in Edinburgh? Isn't it Princes Street?
Princes Street.
Or
George Street.
George Street. Right, there we are then. Right, okay, let's get on.
Well, now that we've gone around the world in the sat-nav, that's really fascinating. My point was that on Tuesday, I could not get any kind of signal on my phone for 3G. And a couple of people I was trying to communicate with couldn't get any internet either. And apparently on Tuesday, that was when some of the solar flare attacks were going on. And that tells me that, that now that they warn about these things, it could be that some internet stuff will be knocked out, some sat-nav stuff will be knocked out.
Yeah.
And so you have to be very careful, is all I'm saying.
What do these solar flare things attack?
Well, the solar flares
attack the atmosphere.
Well, they basically do. Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of almost like an electrical thing, and they just have an effect on all electrical devices. And it's not, it's not mega dangerous, but if the solar flare storm is quite strong, which it is from time to time, and I think the last one was in the century before this, that was going to be as bad as the one they're going to have now.
Right.
Because we're now so reliant upon electricity, which we weren't back in 200 years ago.
Do you mean electronic hardware rather than electricity?
Well, electricity and things that are powered by electricity.
Yeah, well, we've been relying on electricity for well over a century now.
Yeah, I know, but the last time there was a massive solar flare storm, it was actually in the 19th century when we didn't have so much electricity.
Oh, I see, right,
so much, you often tell me that you tell me things that I don't know. I'm telling you something you don't know. Anyway, so I'm just telling people to beware of it. But for Friday the 13th, I got a text here from Andy, who's in Partick, who also says, come on England. So he's a Scotsman who wants England to do well. He says, why Friday the 13th? All right, just listen to this for a second.
Taking the mickey out of myself. I don't really go around growling on 13th of...
it's called howling.
Friday the 13th. Howling, that's
not
right.
growling. Why Friday the 13th as opposed to Friday the 12th or Friday the 11th? What's the scary thing about it? It originates from posh writers to keep the working class down, i.e. Jack the Ripper and Wolfman, etc. Started with posh writers in Porky Parry's neck of the woods, religious and broker belt Surrey.
Really?
What's he talking about?
I don't know. Why would a writer suddenly enunciate on Friday the 13th?
I think what he's trying to say is that the poor people were scared by these stories that were written, and that's what the point of it was.
Terrified
I'll tell you something that's very scary.
Right,
I sent a picture of you out on social media
just
a little while ago, holding up a can of tomatoes, because your latest wacky kind of endeavour is to go on some kind of tomato diet, and I think it's turned you a bit red.
No, Italian...
You're looking very red in the face.
That's because I was out in the sun today. I went for a walk over the downs.
I thought you didn't go out in the sun.
It was very, very hot. Well, I don't go in the sun. I try to keep in the shade.
Yeah.
I wear a hat and I keep in the shade.
Did you not have one of those frozen vests on? From the other night?
No, I'm not going to rise to your intended mockery.
You're the one that said that you wanted one, and people have said that you can get one. Look at this from David.
You can't get one.
Yeah, David, all right, David in Essex says, after Porky was last on the show, did he Google British cooling clothing, which would give him all the info he needs for cooling people with health problems? If not, please tell Porky to do so.
And where would I get a cooling vest from? In downtown Stockbroker Belt, they don't have shops selling ice vests.
Did you not just hear what I said? Google British cooling clothing.
Well, would that do me to have a look at a picture of a vest I couldn't wear?
You can order it and buy it, and it's delivered to your house.
I don't do that.
You just told us last week how you spent a load of time on shopping channels buying, lawnmowers and garden shears.
That was by mistake. That was when I was inebriated, and it was in Washington D.C. and it was when the era of TV shopping had just come in. And it was a novelty, so I bought a few things.
But
which
something you actually need.
But you always order the wrong size on TV shopping.
Just get the biggest one they've got.
Oh, yeah. Like the fits an elephant and not me. I'd have to send it back, wouldn't I?
No, you wouldn't, actually. Now, tell us about this tomato diet.
Right,
anyway.
here.
Your latest fad. Porky's latest fad, part 94.
No, this is not a fad at all. I am constantly researching the health properties of the food I eat, and constantly researching...
Usually coming up with the number 0.
Constantly researching how to keep my body in better shape, because, of course, as I get older, the old ticker gets weaker, and I have to make sure that I am, sturdy enough to get to at least another decade because of my responsibilities to the world, okay?
And to me, as well.
And to you, exactly, yeah. You've got children to educate, so I've got to stay alongside you, otherwise... you would be like a lamb without a shepherd. Right, now, let me read...
Let's not talk about shepherds
that's right. Let me read this to you. The health benefits of tomatoes are endless.
Would you stop reading things out of newspapers?
No, I'm not reading this out of newspapers. This is the research I've done from the Health Dictionary, okay?
In the Daily Express?
No, it's in the Health Dictionary. Right. I don't know what you keep talking about Daily Express for. What's that got to do with the price of fish? Right. Health benefits are endless, rich in potassium, and that lowers the blood pressure and reduces the risk of heart disease and strokes. Too late for me, mate.
It's a bit late for that, isn't it?
I've already got heart disease, yeah. Right, they contain good amounts of vitamin B and folate, which the body needs to convert homocysteine, a potentially dangerous chemical which damages the walls of blood vessels, into benign molecules, okay?
I don't know any idea what any of that means.
So if you're eating your tomatoes, all your bad bits are being changed into good molecules, right? So I
want to know what you're eating the tomatoes as, though. You're just eating raw tomatoes.
Hang on. Antioxidants roam the body. Right, you've got all these antioxidants roaming around in your body, okay? They neutralise free radicals, which damage cells...
They were a good band, weren't they?
That sounds like one, doesn't it? Which damages cells and cell membranes. Now, lycopene is an outstanding oxidant, and because tomatoes are full of it, they offer great protection against prostate and colon cancer. One study showed a tomato-rich diet reduced the likelihood of developing prostate cancer by 32%. They also have excellent anti-inflammatory properties. There's loads of it. Anyway, you've asked the question.
You're going to bore people to death.
You've asked the question,
right? You're holding up... Well, first of all, if you're going to have a diet rich in tomatoes, presumably they don't mean tin tomatoes.
Oh!
Why do you not buy everything you buy is in a tin, right?
You see, what an idiot you are. Shall I tell you why?
Tell me why.
Right. Cooked tomatoes, including tinned, are better for you than raw, as more lycopene is released through cooking. an ounce, lycopene.
Are you sure that's how you pronounce it?
Yeah, because I told you about lycopene a minute ago, didn't I?
But it doesn't sound like the right pronunciation.
It changes things into benign molecules. Now then, here we go. An ounce of cooked tomatoes contains double the amount of vitamin C and a fifth more beta-carotene than an ounce of raw fruit. Our bodies also absorb more lycopene. Hang on, from cooked tomatoes and from raw ones. Even ketchup is a good source of lycopene if it's organic.
Okay. Now, there's one flaw in your plan here. You can't cook, can you?
Of course I can cook.
You can't cook.
I'll tell you how I'm going to put this in, right?
What are you going to put a tin of tomatoes in?
Well, first of all, I'm going to cook myself a spaghetti bolognese today, celebrate it being Friday, and at least 50% of the bolognese is going to be tomato.
What would it be otherwise? What would the other 50% be?
Well, I'm not going to put as much mince and mushroom in as I normally do.
Okay.
More tomatoes.
What else are you going to put in? What else do you put in it? What's your recipe?
I start off by frying some onions.
Yeah.
And I then add some mince.
Right.
And I then add tomatoes usually and mushrooms. And I always douse it in the herb basil.
Basil?
As in faulty.
Do you not put any garlic in it?
No, I can't stand garlic. I hate garlic. And also, garlic is the most unsociable...
Garlic is really good for you.
But it's the most unsociable food.
Better for you than tomatoes.
If I come to the company of anybody who's got garlic in their breath, I feel like spraying them with a fire extinguisher, honestly.
Well, I eat a lot of garlic.
Well,
you don't smell it on me,
that explains a lot. Now, what I was going to say was, the other things that I'm going to turn into tomato food...
Tomato food?
Yeah, tomato sandwiches... But remember,
cooked tomato sandwiches?
No, tomato sandwiches. Yeah. But remember,
never. You just have ham and tomato. It's quite nice. Or cheese and tomato.
No, I'm going to concentrate on. I'll have twice as much tomato and no ham or cheese. Now, the point is, you must never put your tomatoes in the fridge. It damages them. Did you know that?
I've actually grown tomatoes.
Well, okay, you might have grown them. Do you put them in the fridge?
No.
No, exactly.
You don't grow them in the fridge. You grow them outside in the garden.
What I've told you is absolute sense. Here, I've got it here.
You know where you should go?
What?
You should go to Buñol.
Buñol, what's that?
Do you know where that is?
Eh?
Do you know where that is?
Buñol sounds like it's in China.
No, it's in Spain.
In Spain? Well, there you go, it's close.
It's down near Valencia.
Here,
do you know why you should go there?
Why should I go
Because they have a tomato festival every year. You know the place where they throw tomatoes at each other?
Yeah, that sounds messy, that. They're all jumping up and down on them.
You might meet the next Mrs. Parry there.
You might do.
She'll be covered in tomatoes.
Piece of advice.
You take her home.
Tomatoes should not be kept in the fridge. Cold decreases flavour, OK? Now, let me tell you this. You know I keep telling you about my banana boat that goes past my flat in Portsmouth?
Yes.
And I think it's once a week it arrives.
Have you seen it this week?
I haven't seen it this week. I haven't been there as much. The 5 E's banana boat arrives, and it's honestly, it's a huge container ship with all containers on. They're all marked 5 E's, OK? Right. But get this. This is what I didn't understand. Tomatoes are the world's most popular fruit, because a tomato is technically a fruit.
Yeah.
Each year, more than 60 million tonnes are produced, which is 16 million tonnes more than the second most popular fruit, the banana. So, what I'm saying to you, Mike...
Well, you can't make spaghetti bolognese with bananas, can you?
No, you can't. And for every great ship I see carrying 5 E's bananas around, there are 3 ships carrying tomatoes around. How about that?
How fascinating.
Now, that's...
You got all this rubbish?
Now, yes, I'm going to talk about something you want to talk about now. The highlight of La Tomatina, a festival held on the last Wednesday in August in Buñol. In Buñol.
Buñol, I told you.
Buñol, Spain.
It's got a little sign over the end. Buñol.
Is the fight when 30,000 people lob 100 tonnes of overripe tomatoes at each other.
Yeah.
What a complete waste.
Well, that must be good for you, mustn't it? Well, maybe you could go down there with a bucket and just collect some of them and bring them home and make more spag bol.
What a complete waste.
But I think what you should do, I'm encouraged by the fact that you're going to be eating some healthy food. Because like you, I'd quite like you to live for another 10 years.
That's very
kind. That would be about it, I think. No more than that.
You're right.
But you should also explore some cooking tips and cook something other than spaghetti bolognese.
Tomatoes on toast.
Because, go a bit...
Tomatoes on toast.
Get a bit more kind of expansive, because unfortunately for you, if you don't buy the right mince, you'll be doing more damage to yourself eating that than you will by putting the tomatoes in it.
I only ever buy steak mince.
In fact, why don't you just make a tomato-based sauce for your pasta and don't put any meat in it at all? That's better for you.
I like a bit of flavour or a bit of meat, but only steak mince. I never eat cheap mince because when you do and you've cooked it in the pan and the pan has cooled down, you've got this film of fat in the pan and all that's gone in your body in the mince that you've eaten. So I don't eat rubbish meat.
Good morning, You're listening to Extra Time with Mike Graham and Mike Parry. We're keeping you entertained throughout the night. The World Cup is back. We've waited 4 years for the single most brilliant celebration of football on the planet. And last night, Brazil did not disappoint.
Rakitic has lost it here. Oscar makes his way forward. His shot goes in! Game, set, and match, Brazil! Oscar with the goal on the counter-attack. Brazil off to a winning start in 2014. But boy, have they had some luck on the way.
They certainly have. Oscar's third goal put the icing on the cake in Sao Paulo, but it was a nervy start for the Samba boys, and without a couple of controversial refereeing decisions, it could have all been different. Brazil have proved luck can be the biggest helper of all when it comes to the World Cup finals. Tonight, 3 more games live right here on TalkSport, including Spain against Holland. Coming up on the show, we're going to give Mr. Porky Parry a Portuguese test. He thinks it's because he's an expert on Portugal. We're going to be talking about the revival of the Kinks as well, and we're also going to be pondering some more of this huge solar flare that's about to hit the earth. You're listening to Extra Time with me, Mike Graham, and him, Mike Parry, on TalkSport. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I got this text in from Ben, who sent it into 81089. You can find us on social media, of course, at Mike Parry 8, at IROMG, and at TS Extra Time. Ben says, just what is Parry on tonight? All managers moving from one club to another will try to get players from their ex-club to join their new club, just as Martinez did successfully in taking Wigan players to Mr. Parry's beloved Everton. So why is Parry bleating on about what Moyes did or about Van Gaal trying to get Dutch players to United? Also, Parry's being very silly in trying to caricature Scolari as bumbling and panicky. He's talking of himself there.
No, I'm not talking of myself. Don't you think he looks a bit bumbling and panicky?
I don't think he looks entirely as if he's in command
exactly.
of the team at
and
all.
he looks too old as well.
Well, I don't think he looks too old.
You think about him and think about another famous Portuguese-speaking manager, Jose Mourinho. Who would you rather have in command of the team down in that...
Yeah, certainly. Well, I mean, the Brazilians would rather have a Brazilian, I imagine, though, rather than a Portuguese.
No, I totally agree. But what I'm saying is, the image that he gives is, old Uncle Phil, big Phil, stumbling around, not looking as though he's completely focused on what's going on.
Well, you'd have to think that of all the people, I mean, people talked an awful lot about whether Neymar could handle the pressure. He's a young man. He's not very, he's not very experienced, perhaps. But I mean, this guy has got nerves of steel because he took that penalty. I mean, I wasn't too keen on the run up to the penalty.
I thought it was a ludicrous
That looked
penalty.
a bit ridiculous, but he scored it. The point is that he scored the penalty.
But he was lucky to score it. Do you know what he reminded me of? He reminded me of a wild bunny rabbit. Running one way and then running the other, and then starting to hop on the spot. And then eventually hit it, and the goalkeeper got both hands on it and should have saved it.
Probably
that goalkeeper had a lot to answer for in the first goal as well, because it came from so far out.
Goal, actually.
And the third goal, so far out. And the other goalkeeper, of course, never for a moment interfered with the Croatian striker, Jelavic, my boy, who got up and cleanly headed the ball back into the area. And that was a disgraceful... But you see, if you take a Japanese referee who's never been in control of some of the world's top players before, like referees in Europe are on a weekly basis in the Champions League, then that referee, the first time he made a controversial decision, and he had all these world-famous...
When he gave the penalty.
And all these world-famous players bearing down on him. I mean, obviously not as famous as Brazil's players, but Croatia's...
Yeah, but he didn't give in to them. I thought he handled that quite well.
No, but he was absolutely shocked, and he was so shocked. Actually, it was a decision before the penalty which shocked him, which led him to awarding the penalty, wasn't it? Obviously.
What, you mean the one where he gave Neymar a yellow card?
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. And he got so much stick for that, and, the crowd were on his back, he was getting booed, the players were protesting, the Brazilian players, so he thought, I better, I'm not alleging that this referee is in any way corrupt or inefficient. What I'm saying is the psychological pressure.
He saw what happened.
Psychological pressure played on him. But it was never a penalty. We know.
Well, it was a penalty, actually.
It wasn't a penalty. I heard you say that it was a penalty.
I think it
was.
And
I think you're mistaken, because all that happened was a hand on a shoulder. If that was a penalty, there's going to be 120 penalties during the World Cup.
There should be, because, I'm sick to death of seeing players having their shirts pulled. I'm sick to death of
nobody was pulled. Nobody was pushed.
No, but it happens all the time, right?
And
there's no question that the defender tried to manhandle the guy, and then he tried to lift his hands up after he realised he touched him, because you don't touch a Brazilian in the penalty area. He falls over. And now, I admit that the Brazilian falling over was probably an incredibly soft thing to have done.
Too dramatic.
Maybe so, but the referee was fooled, and the referee gives a penalty.
Play acting.
Professional footballers will always say to you, if you give the opportunities for the referee to give you a red card or to give away a penalty, he will do it.
Well, I thought it was ludicrous.
And if the guy kept his hands to himself, it wouldn't have happen, would it?
I thought it was ludicrous, honestly. But anyway, we'll have to agree to differ on that, Mike, because we always see these things from completely different perspectives.
Well, we do, and as far as Van Gaal is concerned, I mean, it's interesting what you're saying about him going to Manchester United and forgetting about the Holland job. I mean, if Holland do go out early, as Andrew McKenna was saying, and therefore he gets back to Old Trafford in time to make some signings, then surely that's going to be bad news for Man United. Because what they're going to then have is a manager who couldn't get Holland to a World Cup or to the Euros, I think, the last time, could he? And now he couldn't get Holland out of the group stages of the World Cup.
Yeah, that's right. But I'm telling you now, and everybody must know this. Macca knew what I was getting at. He picked up on it immediately. Don't you think that Van Gaal, who's got some of the world's great players under his control for the next 2 or 3 weeks, he must be saying to Arjen Robben, by the way, he's got Van Persie, of course, as you pointed out.
His new captain.
As his new captain at Manchester United, with him in the Dutch squad. Do you not think there'll be a bit of, to people like Arjen van Robben, wow, Old Trafford's a very nice place. Arjen van Robben.
Arjen van Robben?
Yeah.
You mean Arjen Robben?
Arjen Robben.
He hasn't got a van in his name.
He's a vanless man.
It's easy to think of all Dutch players with Van as their middle name.
It is, yeah. But Arjen Robben, he's bound to say to him, Old Trafford's a good place to play football.
Arjen Robben's not going to go there.
Manchester's a nice city.
Yeah, but they're not in the Champions League, are they?
Well, you see,
they're not in the Champions League.
That is his biggest problem. That's his biggest problem, to convincing people. But then he could say, Look how Liverpool nearly won the Premier League title because they weren't in the Champions League next season. The fact that we've got no European pressures on us means you can come to England.
You can say that.
Come to England and get your first domestic title in England. Because, of course, did he get one with Chelsea? I don't think he did. He? I'm not sure.
Who, Robben?
I think Robben came after they won the title in 5 and 6.
Yeah, maybe.
And before they won it in.
He didn't have a great time at Chelsea, did he?
No, he didn't have a great time.
He didn't.
He's a bit of a whinger, actually. A lot of Dutch players are. They do whinge a lot. And they do, they're very precise about their injuries. If they've got, for instance, a bruise on their little finger, they'd have to have a 3-week rest from the game because they wouldn't want to exacerbate it.
But this is what they say about Van Persie. When I was amazed, I think we talked about this before, when towards the end of last season he was injured, he was actually over in Holland recuperating with the sort of, some Dutch setup, and he was nowhere near Old Trafford.
No, that's right.
And Arsenal fans have said that, that before the last year that he had the great season with Arsenal, when he was injured a lot, he just would say, I'm sorry, I'm injured, I can't play. Yeah. And he didn't play for lots of parts of the season.
By the way, I meant to ask you, Mike, talking about this competition, right, before it gets underway with England tomorrow, I addressed the people of Northern Ireland yesterday on the issue of would they be supporting England in the World Cup, and 95% of them said they would, but there were 5% there who said, why should we? We're not changing colours, not changing allegiance. I said, it's not that. I said, if Northern Ireland were in the World Cup and England weren't, I'd be supporting you lot. We're all in the United Kingdom.
But it's not quite
we have the same passports. Well, I'm putting it to you now as a latent Scotsman.
What do you mean latent Scotsman? What does that mean?
I do. It means a secretive jock, a whinging jock.
Secretive about it.
A secretive whinging jock.
No, and I want to know. You should be very careful about addressing your fellow Brits in that manner.
Listen, every Scots people I know are good people.
Yeah, they are.
But you're not a good Scot. You're a whinging jock. And I want to know whether you would support England wholeheartedly and advise the people of Scotland to support England in the current World Cup.
Yeah, well, of course I support England in the current World Cup.
And do all your fellow Scotsmen?
I can't speak
for those guys that,
I can't speak for all my fellow Scotsmen.
Stumble down Sauchiehall Street with, legless in your pursuit of the pleasures of the flesh and the alcohol.
Well, there are 5 million people or so living in Scotland, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak for all of them, and there are plenty of people in Scotland, as we read out from one of our earlier contributors. I can't remember his name. Andy in Partick, who said that Andy in Partick, who's going to support England. We had a text last night from a group of guys who are going to travel down from Scotland to Carlisle to watch the England game on TV.
Excellent.
And they do it every World Cup.
Well, why isn't it being shown in Scotland?
Well, I don't know. That's not for me
Why would you get in your car and say, I think I'll drive to Carlisle, it's about 200 miles away, to watch a football match?
Well, perhaps it's not being shown on STV, I don't know.
Ludicrous, it must be.
No, I don't know if it is.
Well,
they
must be showing the World Cup, so they've probably shown Spain and Argentina and Brazil.
Think so. Well, maybe they just... because I think they want to go to an English pub and watch it with their fellow, British people in an English pub, because because if you go and watch an England game at a Scottish pub, more often than not, you'd find a load of people wearing Italian shirts, because they'll support. You know, you remember what happened to poor old Andy Murray just because he made some joke about, you know, he didn't want England to do well in some competition. I think it's perfectly normal for any Scotsman not to support England if they don't wish to. I don't see why anybody from Ireland should support England if they don't want to, and neither should anyone from Wales.
I'm not saying that they've got to beat a drum and say England, England, England.
I mean, I don't get as carried away as you do about England.
What I'm saying is...
And maybe that is because I'm Scottish.
Is that they should be pleased. I mean, I tried to point out to these people, you should be pleased if England do very well. If they do well, the game thrives in England.
Yeah.
Where would any young boy from Ulster or from Northern Ireland who wanted to pursue his, a career as a professional footballer, where's he more likely or most likely to go to do that within the British Isles? England.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly. So I said you need the game to thrive.
Yeah.
So the benefits, spread out to everybody.
But you can't really make people support a team that they're... I mean, like, for example, if
I don't want to make anybody do anything.
When England played Scotland...
I'm not a dictator.
All right, well, let me explain something to you. When England played Scotland at Wembley, I actually wanted Scotland to win.
Why?
Because I'd rather see Scotland beating England. I think it's a more kind of romantic result. He's feeling all right. I think I just made him choke. When England play Scotland at rugby, I quite like to see Scotland win. And it may be because of my heritage. It may just be because there is something about England when they play sometimes that you just feel that, you know, the hype that goes around and people like you that get all carried away and start, you know, singing to the rafters, God Save the Queen and all this nonsense,
shocked
you know.
when I went to Twickenham for an England-Scotland game and went in a box, right, being invited along. And Al had been invited, Alan Brazil, he's a Scotsman, obviously.
Yeah.
But he couldn't make it, so he gave the 2 tickets he had to his daughter and her boyfriend.
Yeah.
She turned up with all the tartan wrapped around her. I mean...
Well, why wouldn't she?
Well, because she's brought up in England, in Suffolk.
Is her mother Scottish?
No, her mother's not Scottish, no. Her mother's from Ipswich. So, and lovely young lady, brought up in Suffolk, educated, you know, in schools and English, all that kind of stuff, went to English University, all this kind of stuff, and turns up at Twickenham, England versus Scotland, in tartan, supporting Scotland.
Well, she's obviously her father's daughter.
She's her father's daughter.
My daughter, by the same token, is supporting England in the World Cup, even though she could be supporting USA if she wanted to be.
Yeah, right, okay.
But that's the way it goes. Mike Porky Parry is here. I'm Mike Graham. We are the two Mikes together. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about poetry, because Porky's got a bee in his bonnet about it. This is TalkSport. TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is here with me, and we're going to go at some poetry in a moment. You wrote a rather disgusting poem about me a few weeks ago when I asked you to...
It wasn't disgusting, it was...
Well, it was rather insulting, let's say that.
It was mocking, I agree.
Yeah, but it was unsavoury, I would say.
Well, it was a bit tongue-in-cheek.
Which is entirely in keeping with the part of the world from which you come at the moment, which is Gosport. Because, we were talking about the other day about how they're going to have a drive-in a KFC drive-in, and I said it was going to be the first one in Britain. It turns out it's not the first one in Britain, but certainly the first one in Gosport, right? And
I also told you about the tank tracks at Gosport, where it still exists, where the tanks were driven onto the carriers.
Here's another news story from
I've heard
friendly
about this.
downtown.
I think I know what you're going to be saying.
And it's about the mayor of Gosport, who's been banned from all the pubs in the area for being drunk. In charge of himself going to all these different places.
Allegedly.
Well, they say Gosport Borough Council declined to comment on the story, but they say the only good news is that he doesn't have a vote on the licensing committee, so presumably he doesn't have any sway with any of these pubs. Well, it says that the newly elected mayor appears to have had the intoxicating effects of power may have gone to his head. They're calling for the resignation of the guy called Wayne Ronayne. Yeah. He's been banned from all 36 pubs in Gosport after
I didn't know there were 36. I've never been to 36 pubs in Gosport.
How many have you been to?
Maybe half a dozen.
Half a dozen. Well, he apparently was thrown out of a bar, allegedly, after just hours after taking office. He was
a disgrace.
Celebrating with his partner, but they were allegedly too drunk, and the staff had to call police to lead him out along with his entourage.
Which pub was this, do you know?
Let's see. It doesn't know if it actually says. It doesn't say. Nelson's.
Yeah. Nelson's is a Wetherspoons pub in the High Street in Gosport. It's a fantastic pub. It was voted the best food served in Gosport was at Nelson's pub. Serves great breakfast, opens at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's a thoroughly decent place. Yeah.
Well,
he got thrown out.
According to the barmaid, when they asked him to leave, this was a very rowdy group of people who were celebrating his mayoral victory.
And this was just an hour or two after he was installed.
Yeah, apparently, his wife said to the barmaid, "Do you know who I am?" And the barmaid said, "No, I don't." She said, "I'm the mayoress of Gosport, and I can have you closed down."
Well, that's some sort of a threat, isn't it?
Isn't it? The barmaid says, I politely said she still wouldn't be coming in. She was clearly in drink, and then she had to be dragged away.
Blimey, and what's the outcome? They've been banned from all the
They've
pubs.
been banned from 36 pubs in the Gosport area.
Good God.
By the Gosport Pub Watch chairman.
Well, I mean, has this boy got a future as the mayor?
Well, I mean, the opposition are trying to get him to resign.
Well, I don't blame him, to be honest.
I would watch this space if I were you.
Which political party does he belong to?
I'm not sure.
Because, I mean, that's an absolute disgrace. I mean, you know, Mr Farage of the UKIP lobby, he's always seen with a pint of beer in his hand, but this guy seems to, well, allegedly, we have to say, because he hasn't been in front.
What party he's in. But anyway, it sounds like he's in the Let's Have a Good Time party.
Certainly does.
I'm surprised you haven't run into him in one of your pub crawls down there.
I must admit, I am. If you go into Wetherspoons and start claiming that I could close you down,
Yeah.
I think you have to understand you're taking on Mr Tim Martin, the guy who's the boss of Wetherspoons, who's got like hundreds and hundreds of pubs, and who is smarter than the average bear.
Yeah.
So for some loudmouthed mayoress, which is what the allegation is in that report, to go around claiming she can close pubs down, really doesn't belong in
It's
civic
not a good
life.
idea, is it?
Doesn't
and
belong
also,
in civic life.
is there nothing worse, is there, than people who say, don't you know who I am?
Exactly.
Remember that great story from the old days of the Mirror when Robert Maxwell used to be in charge of it?
Yes.
Robert Maxwell rang up the news desk
Yes.
one night and started mouthing off to somebody.
That's
or other,
right.
And he got a bit of abuse back. And Robert Maxwell said to him, and you probably know who this was. I can't remember who it was.
I do, actually.
But Robert Maxwell said, "Do you know who this is?" And the voice said, "Yes, I think you're Robert Maxwell, aren't you?" And then the reporter said, "Do you know who I am?" And Robert Maxwell said, "No." And he said, "Good," and put the phone down.
Yeah, thank God for that, and put the phone down. That's right. Yeah, but the other great Maxwell story was just after he took over the Mirror, and they had that. Headquarters then in Colmore Circus.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Do you remember? Huge banners outside. Sunday Mirror, Sunday People, Daily Mirror and all that. Very impressive building. State-of-the-art building built in the sort of the late 60s when the Mirror was selling 4 million copies
Did
a
it
day.
not have a helipad on the roof as
Had
well?
a helipad on the roof because Maxwell actually had a luxury apartment right at the top of the rotunda, the building in the centre of the complex, you know, and a helipad on the roof. You're absolutely right, yeah. And he was the first man I ever met who used to slice up strawberries and put them into his champagne.
Yes.
And I saw him do it once, and then everybody else around the table started picking strawberries out the bowl and doing it themselves, thinking, oh, this must be the in thing.
It's supposed to take the gas out of it, isn't it?
Is it? I don't know.
I knew a guy used to put a lump of sugar in as well to do the same thing. Has the same
What, in a
effect.
glass of champagne?
Yeah, you drop a lump of sugar in a glass of champagne.
Very interesting.
It has an effect of making it less kind of acidic and gassy.
Yeah, but anyway, so Maxwell, who's a very bumptious man.
Dreadful man.
I mean, the stories about him are a legion, but he bundles into the Mirror building, and he goes into the lift, and there's...
Because he had a private lift, didn't he?
Well, this wasn't his private lift, this was his lift up to the news floor, and there was a guy in there who had a ring in his ear, and long hair, and he was chewing gum, and Maxwell didn't think he was dressed properly, and he was a courier. He had all his...
From an outside company.
Well, this is the point, you see. Maxwell thought he was a Mirror courier, so he said to him, now, young man, how much do you earn a week? And he said, 125 quid. You do you? Well, let me tell you this. So Maxwell reached into his pocket, counted out very flamboyantly, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, and there's a fiver. That's 1 week's notice. Get out of this building, and don't let me ever see you again. I'm not having filthy individuals like you tarnishing the name of the Mirror. He goes, oh, all right, thanks, Mr. Maxwell. But it turned out he worked for another company, and it was nothing to do with Mirror.
He just got 325 quid.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
This maniac had just given 125 quid in the lift.
I once actually got an interview with him when I was in New York, and when he was trying to buy the Daily News, and he had that boat, the Lady Ghislaine, which was the one that he eventually threw himself off somewhere in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, parked up in New York Harbour.
Yeah, he parked it up in New York Harbour,
yeah.
but he was staying on it, right? And I'd put in an interview request through some PR or other, and I was doing it on behalf of the Sunday Times I was working for at the time, and eventually rang my office, but he rang ship to shore, even though the boat was actually just parked at the water club. It was right by the East River there, and he didn't need to make a ship to shore phone call at all. Made the ship to shore phone call and came out with all his cobblers. I've had many requests for interviews, but I've called you personally because of the high esteem in which I hold you personally and your newspaper. I never met the guy in my life.
Which
before.
newspaper were you
Sunday
representing?
Times.
Oh, see, yeah.
And
okay,
anyway,
yeah.
so it was all going very well until I said, well, unfortunately, Mr. Maxwell, the people who say haven't got any money, and at this point he was raiding all the pension funds to actually buy the Daily News.
Yeah.
And he went off a complete maniacal tangent, started effing and blinding, calling me all sorts of things, the C word. I mean, the whole kind of, the whole kind of idea of this guy being this very important.
You weren't recording it by any chance, were you?
I wasn't recording it.
What a pity.
It
Yeah.
would have been very, very funny if we had. Anyway, listen, we're supposed to be talking about poetry here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, go on.
Because you've got bee in your bonnet about the way
Jeremy
that poetry
Paxman
is going, right? Jeremy Paxman is launching some kind of crusade.
You know, who is a national institution, and I don't know why, because he's been a presenter on a very low audience show for very many years.
But a very highbrow show, you'd call it.
Very highbrow, but too highbrow for most people. That's why nobody watches it. That's why it's got a very, very low audience, and its effect, its influence on the life of Britain is way beyond what it really should be.
Well, an awful lot of that political stuff.
Of course it is. Of course it is. It's all mythology. But anyway, to give Jerry Paxman his due, because he does University Challenge as well, he has started making a protest about what is poetry and what isn't poetry. Because and I totally agree with him. What's the definition of poetry? A bit of prose, is that poetry? So I mean, for instance,
prose isn't poetry for a start, is it?
No, but it can be confused for it. This is what I'm saying. Now we've just commemorated the 100th anniversary, haven't we, of the birth of Dylan Thomas?
Yeah.
Oh, hello, boyo. I come from Wales, Lansfran or whatever it is.
Drank himself to death.
Drank himself to death before the age of 40 in a hotel in New York, where he came back into the bar after a night's drink and said, I have had 27 large whiskies tonight and I feel wonderful. Went upstairs and died.
He wouldn't have beaten the record at Raffles that Alan Brazil made, would he?
No, that was the Gin Slings, wasn't it? He had quite a few. But anyway, the point of my story is he dies and all that. Well, he wrote this thing called Under Milk Wood, and I studied that for O-level, and I don't know why people thought it was a brilliant play, poem, whatever you want to call it.
Why?
It was just a rambling load of rubbish, frankly. Anybody could have written it. I could have written it. A poem.
Well, you could not have written it for a start.
Listen, I read loads of poems, and half of them don't rhyme. And if they don't rhyme...
have to rhyme.
If they don't rhyme, it's not a poem.
Rubbish.
I'm telling you, if the words... Right, I'll tell you the greatest poem ever written, OK? I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vale and hill.
That doesn't rhyme.
When all
it doesn't rhyme.
Excuse me.
It doesn't rhyme.
It doesn't have to rhyme with the next
so as long as it rhymes at some point.
Well, listen to me.
You just said it had to rhyme.
It does rhyme if you just shut up.
Rhyme.
Let me read you the first verse of the poem.
All right, then.
I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of dancing daffodils. Along the lake beneath the trees, they fluttered gaily in the breeze. Now, that is a beautiful poem by William Wordsworth.
What does it mean?
Well, you know what it means. It's about daffodils, because they're beautiful flowers, and he's wrote it. Now, then you get some poems.
Like it.
You get some poems which are just utter tripe. They don't rhyme. They don't mean anything.
Well, I mean, it's ludicrous to say there are some poems that are great, some poems that are not. Of course.
I have a gift as a poet writer.
Really?
I can write poems. I wrote a poem about you.
I'll tell you what. You can now be challenged in that case to write a poem.
Right,
before you finish on this show, right? So you've got about an hour and a half. I'll give you an hour to write a poem.
No, I don't need an hour. Right, you give me a subject, and I'll write you a poem in 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah, 3 minutes.
All right, how about speed cameras?
No problem at all. We're going to talk about them later on in the show. We're going to talk about the fact that you can now be done for £10,000 for... Right, give me 3 minutes is all I need. Countdown. What time is it now?
Well, it's now coming up to 3:30 in the morning.
Right.
By the time we come back from the news, you can read us a poem.
I will.
Excellent. Mike Porky Parry, the Poet Laureate, or not. This is Talk Sport.
Thank you for the days, those endless days, those sacred days you gave me. I'm thinking of the days I won't forget a single day, believe me. I bless the light.
This is Talk Sport Extra Time. Mike Parry is here, still working frantically on his poem.
No,
thankfully,
I've done that.
I don't want to hear your poem now, so I'm listening to some very nice music
I
at
was
the
about
moment.
to say to you, that is wonderful poetry.
Yeah.
The lyrics that are written for any Kinks song by
Yeah.
Ray Davis, in association maybe with his brother Dave Davis, who have had a very stormy relationship over the years. Wonderful, wonderful lyrical stuff. then put to music, that's what I call poetry.
Yeah, that's what I call poetry as
Yeah.
well. But other people call it music. Other people call it beautiful sonnets or whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk now though to Nick Harcourt,
do
because
that.
you know what, the Kinks may be reforming.
Well, this
and
is
I
a
think
great
it's a
news.
mistake. I don't think it's a good news at all. Let's talk to Nick and see whether he agrees with you. Nick, a very good morning to you. And welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, very well indeed. Now, you've been music and culture editor of many kind of newspapers and magazines. You've worked on the radio. You've been on TV. You'll probably remember the Kinks perhaps for the first time around, as Mike Parry does. I don't like the idea of them reforming, do you?
Well, I'm not as old as you guys.
Well, so you don't remember them then?
No, I do. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I thought you were. I could tell it in the voice.
Well, it's 3:30 in the morning where you are. I'm trying to figure out if you're actually awake.
No, we're awake. Nick, I think all this is actually prompted by the fact that there is an absolutely world-beating play taking place in London called Sunday Afternoon. It's at the Hampstead Theatre. It's getting rave reviews, and this has led to a surge of enthusiasm from Kinks fans for Ray Davies and Dave Davies, who seem to have made up their differences, to get back together. So we're trying to find out whether that's a good thing.
Well, you know, I was reading a little bit about this before we got on the phone, and I interviewed Ray Davies quite some time ago now. I think maybe 12 plus years ago. He had a book out at the time and was doing his solo thing. And well, he's a difficult bloke, I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship apparently between him and his brother is full of animosity.
Well, it has been, yeah, it has been.
I can't really see why they would do it. The last thing I read from Dave Davies was that I guess Ray was saying if we're going to do it, then let's make a new album. I don't want to just go out and play the hits. And good for him for saying that. But then apparently Dave Davies was quoted a year ago saying, "I can't imagine anything more horrible than going into a studio with Ray to make new music."
Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? Because, I mean, at the time when... I mean, it's a bit like Oasis, really, the Gallagher brothers. I mean, they get to a point where they can't stand each other. They don't really want to be in the same room or sometimes in the same country as each other. And in the old days, some of that kind of... I suppose that difficulty was good because it was kind of dynamic and they made great music out of it. But, you know, the Kinks were a great band a very long time ago. Yeah. And I just can't see there any point. It's kind of embarrassing. It's a bit like the Rolling Stones still touring after all this time. Are you still there?
Hello, Nick?
Nick
seems to have gone. No, he seems to have gone. Listen, Mike, you're absolutely right in the point you made there. And can I tell you something else as well? Any person of our sort of generation, our sort of age, who wants to go and see the Kinks reformed, isn't going to see him reformed to play some new music they've never heard before.
Well, that's the other problem, isn't it?
It would take 2 years for you to appreciate a new Kinks record. What they want to do is they want to go there and see Ray Davies in his language style, standing up on that stage, stick thin as he is, and playing Waterloo Sunset and singing, you know, Thank You for the Days and Lola and all those great hits that he wrote. So there's absolutely no point in writing new stuff at all. I went to an Elton John concert once, believe it or not. It was a very long time ago. It was with
was it when he was being very flamboyant in those days?
Yeah, it was when he threw, I think I told you, he threw the old piano stool off the stage and all. But he was on the same bill as the Beach Boys. Yeah. And it was at the old Wembley Stadium. That's how long ago it was. It was a long time ago. And Mike Love of the Beach Boys wore a coat which had live electric light bulbs in it. I mean, it was really odd.
Was that during that time? Do you remember Brian Wilson, who was the Beach Boy who built a sandpit in his house?
Well, he had to, because he said he wanted his toes to be in sand when he was composing music to make it feel like a beach.
Because he had some kind of nervous breakdown and he had a lot of mental health problems.
He had a load of mental health problems.
And also, did he not give all his money away to some guru or other?
Well, his mental health problems...
Who was the guy that recommended that he build a sandpit?
That's right. He had a lot of mental health problems because they were induced by drugs. He's quite open about that. You know,
they all took so many drugs.
They all took so many drugs and all that kind of stuff. Then he went completely sort of... I'm not going to be unkind here.
You probably are now.
Odd and strange and all that kind of stuff. And
that's probably not the word you were going to use.
No, he wasn't, but he went weird. But there's a bit of a tragedy in the Beach Boys. One of the Beach Boy brothers, I think it was Dennis, didn't he jump off a boat and never surface again and drown or something like that? And that's what they used to do in California. But anyway,
the beach.
Look, getting back to the Kinks, what I'm saying is, they would, if they did I mean, you know, what we've just been told by Nick, our expert there, the man who seems to be a million miles away. Yeah. Not sure what happened to Nick, he's taken off.
I think he'd been meditating.
I think he was meditating. But who would go, so to see Elton John... and all that. And then do you know what Elton John did?
What?
He came on the stage in, you know, a spangly suit and the big glasses and all that, and he sat down. He said, I'll play a few old hits in a minute. I want you all to listen to my new album.
Yeah.
And he played the whole of the new album for the next hour and a half. Nobody had ever heard of these records.
Yeah, well, I bet it was a great album. Though. Which album was it?
I've no idea, but
Well,
what
why don't you remember?
Well, because I wasn't listening, because I didn't want to listen to some new records.
Well,
I
that's
wanted
ridiculous.
to hear
Well, that's
Rocket
like saying-
Man.
well,
and,
that's like saying-
and
well, that's like- Crocodile Rock.
Crocodile Rock,
Oh,
there you
yeah,
go.
but that's like saying, you know, you went to a Beatles concert before they made Let It Be, and when they came on the stage and said, we're going to play our new album, you wouldn't have wanted to hear it.
No, that's
exactly
different.
what
No,
you're
it's
saying.
different. You can't appreciate songs when you hear them the first time. You've got to be able to lie on the couch at home, let them sift into your brain and melt around your brain. I mean, for instance, Paul McCartney, in my view, wasted about 25 years on the road with Wings, going around the world and playing a load of Wings songs when it was clear.
Some of Wings songs were all right.
Some were all right. None of them were of Beatles quality, except for the Long and Winding Road and
The Long and Winding Road
Kintyre.
was a Beatles song.
No, it wasn't. It was a
it was.
McCartney song. No,
Well, it's on a Beatles album.
no, it's not. It appeared for the first time on an album called McCartney, which was McCartney's first solo album, which happened at the breakup of the Beatles in 1969.
Well, it's known as a Beatles song.
It's not. It's known as a McCartney song. The long and winding road,
Yeah.
boom, boom.
Well, why is it on all the Beatles
that
albums then?
leads-
All
I
the
don't know. I don't know why it's put
Well,
into
you're wrong.
Beatles compilations.
It's
It's
and
a
no,
McCartney
and
song.
no other McCartney songs are, so you're wrong about that.
No, I'm not wrong about it. I've got the original McCartney album of him
It's
pictured.
credited to Lennon McCartney. I've just been told.
Well, that's because
It's a
it-
Beatles song.
No, it was originally going to go on Let It Be, but McCartney at the last moment held it back and said it's too good because Let It Be was a compilation of discarded tracks which hadn't made the rest of the Beatles albums, and he said I'm having it, and he put it on McCartney. Believe me, that's where it first
Well, I
appeared.
don't believe you because it's a Lennon McCartney song. It's credited Lennon McCartney and it's sold as a Beatles song.
Lennon and McCartney never wrote a song together after 1964. It was just that because their publishers, Northern Songs, had an agreement
You
that
sure
each...
it's not on Let It Be anyway?
No, it's not on Let It Be. It's definitely not on Let It Be.
You're absolutely sure?
Absolutely certain. It is not on Let It Be. Don't you worry about that.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, so McCartney goes around the world.
You want to be absolutely certain?
I'm
about
absolutely certain. I know my facts about the Beatles.
that? It was
So,
the final Beatles #1 in America.
yeah, but it was a McCartney song. It was released in America as a Beatles song, but it was a McCartney song. I'm telling you, Mike, I know
You're
these
talking
things.
absolute
I'm
rubbish.
not talking absolute
You've
rubbish. I
already
do not-
failed a Beatles quiz once
No,
before.
no.
You better
Anyway,
stop
anyway,
digging
anyway.
the hole.
Anyway, so-
Let's hear your poem anyway. Instead of you talking all these cobblers about the
in a
Beatles.
second, McCartney goes around the world playing all these Wings songs. Well, in fact, all these thousands of people turn up at these massive concerts all over the world, massive stadiums in America. Actually, just wanted McCartney to sing "Let It Be" and "Hey
Well, maybe
Jude."
they said, hey, Paul, why don't you
Hey
sing
Jude.
that great song off the Beatles album,
but-
Let It Be,
Yeah.
The Long and Winding Road?
No, it wasn't. And
was
instead,
on the album.
Instead, he was singing things like "Jet." I can almost remember the funny faces, which was, you know, they're
Right.
all right, but they're average.
Right,
anyway.
let's get your poem. You've
Okay.
had more than 3 minutes to write it.
Well,
Mike Porky-Parry on speed cameras. Let's go.
I did write it in 3 minutes, but then we were talking to Nick.
I haven't seen you actually write it. You shouldn't write this before.
No, I've written it here. Right, okay. You want a poem about speed cameras? Here it is.
Go on.
A speed camera is a yellow box. And, now hang on. I just... Hang on. I tell you the first
Brilliant.
line. I want to remind the audience that the very point of me, the very point of me writing this poem, right, is that I say poems have to rhyme.
What are you going to write with box then?
I'm telling you, I'm
Box.
serious. No. Look, shut up, because it was a bit difficult, but I've got it onto. It's a surreal poem, but it rhymes.
Certainly is.
It rhymes.
Like
okay?
everything else you do.
It is a bit surreal.
Go on.
Right, here we go. A speed camera is a yellow box. It wears no coat and it wears no socks. Right? Oh, hang on. When its evil eye flashes out a blue light, it means your wallet is going to get light.
What?
Well, it
That's
rhymes.
2 words. the
It
same.
rhymes. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Read that bit again.
It's light and light. It's 2 different meanings of light.
It's the same word.
No. Let me read it again. A speed camera is a yellow box.
Yeah.
It wears no coat and it wears no socks.
Right.
But when its evil eye flashes out a blue light,
Yeah.
it means your wallet is going to get light. Now, don't you understand the...
You can't rhyme two words that are the same.
It's the genius of the different meaning of the word light. One is a flashing light, as in bulb. The other one is lighter than heavy. Do you see what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I do
know the difference.
I think that is pretty damn good.
Yeah. I think that pretty much disqualifies you from having to go at anybody's poetry. That's the worst poem I think I've ever heard in my entire life.
Well, I would rather take the audience's view on that, because I think that to me, if you wrote that down, that people look at that in a few years' time and say, actually, that was a stroke of genius.
All right. Well, here's one that was written in exactly the same time by Dave from Behind the Glass, there, right? Which is actually better. Those silver boxes policing our roads with a flash, preventing speeding or even a crash. They sit there watching all of the time. If you get caught speeding, 3 points and a fine. I think that's much better.
I think that's like a nursery rhyme, drivel. Utter drivel.
All right, well, we'll ask the audience, shall we?
Utter drivel.
Do let us know. You can text us on 81089. Do you prefer Porky's or do you prefer Dave's? You can find us on social media at IROMG, at Mike Parry 8, and of course you can text us on 81089. Coming up next, we're going to be talking transfers.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in the middle with you.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. The World Cup has begun, of course, but nevertheless, there is still plenty of business being done. Mike Parry's here with us. Ben Fletcher's here to tell us what's going on. Some great displays of various different deals going on in the Times, which we're going to go through right now. But I suppose what Mike Parry was saying earlier about Louis van Gaal and whether he's able to do business or not while he's the Dutch manager. And there's, we heard from Andrew McKenna earlier saying that Stuart Pearce is over there working for us, but he's also, talking about doing deals for Nottingham Forest. I suppose you can separate the two, but it can't be easy, can it?
It can't be easy, and why would you want to separate the two? If you're the Dutch national manager, you've got Robin van Persie already in the Man United camp. He's going to feature in the World Cup for Holland.
Yeah.
He really could. That could be a Dutch renaissance at Old Trafford almost. And
there's bound to be. I mean, there's bound to be. Look what happens when Arsene Wenger first arrived at Arsenal. There was a French renaissance.
Absolutely.
When the previous to Jose Mourinho, Ranieri goes to Chelsea, Italian renaissance. It happens. Because these managers of whatever nationality they are seem to take great comfort in soccer in working with players of the same nationality as they do, and of course they know a lot about them.
Absolutely. And if you happen to be the coach of the national team, it seems to just make sense. So he's going to be a very busy boy. But that said, Schweinsteiger, Sebastian Schweinsteiger from Germany, he could be on his way to Old Trafford. He's one of the players apparently lined up in the Times today, and that would be a fantastic signing for Manchester United.
Wasn't he a target for them 2 years ago, and they couldn't get him? And haven't I read 100 times since that he's now past his best?
Well, I mean, the Champions League final in which Chelsea won it, he looked, missed the penalty, he looked a forlorn figure, and he's not done a hell of a lot since. Sure, they won it the year after, but, that aside, you're right, I don't see him being as potent as he used to be. And is he going to want to go to Old Trafford without the draw of Champions League football?
I don't think he is.
Why would you want to leave Bayern Munich?
I think his ego would not allow it.
Yeah.
Because I think when you're at that level of football, you want to play in the Champions League every single season. I mean, it's like asking Ronaldo to go back to Man United. Don't worry, we'll get Champions League next season. His ego couldn't stand it, I don't think.
Well, absolutely not. I mean, having said that, though, without the distraction of Champions League football, you could argue that United are going to win the
but isn't that just a cop-out?
It is a little bit. It is a little bit.
Saying without the distraction of Champions League. I mean, Manchester United have been in the Champions League forever.
Isn't Ronaldo, as you're quite right, Mike, just to use Mike's example, Ronaldo was more likely to turn around and say to Van Gaal, will you get yourself back in the Champions League and I'll think about coming to you next season?
Well, absolutely, but why Ronaldo surely will go to a club, and he could win the World Cup, with Portugal. That's not impossible, and it would be a fitting tribute to what's been a great career so far. But where'd you go? After Real Madrid, where's he going to go? I'd like to see him at Chelsea, actually, because then he could do a treble. It's a different club. It's a completely different style of football. He's under a manager, Jose Mourinho, who could well manage him at international level one day. Who knows? who knows? But
well, let's talk about Chelsea because Cesc Fabregas is now going there. A lot of Arsenal fans not very happy about it.
Once a Gooner, always a Gooner, I think he said when he left for Barcelona. But yeah, Cesc Fabregas.
That was why he was wearing the Barcelona shirt, right?
That's right. Yeah, in the Spanish dressing room.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, he had to get that out. But Cesc Fabregas, Talksport brought you the story last week. We were the first to bring you that story, but he is now confirmed. He has signed a deal at Chelsea, and it's really, really strange seeing him in the blue of the London blue of Chelsea. But this Chelsea side is really, really exciting now. You've got Cesc Fabregas, you've got Matic, you've got Oscar. It's a fantastic side, and I'd like congratulations Chelsea for winning the league.
Which, by the way, is another reason why Manchester United might not be able to guarantee themselves getting into the top four. Chelsea have now got Fabregas and Diego Costa. Manchester City are going to sign some new players.
They haven't got Costa yet, have they?
Yeah, they have.
Have they?
Yeah, it's done. The deal's done.
Is it done?
Yeah,
pretty much.
What have you been doing for the last 2 weeks?
No, hang on.
You've been hiding in a cave.
Hang on. I'm sorry, but
the medical, I think the latest.
As far as I know, he's still an Atletico player.
No, he's not.
The medical's been done. It's yet to be confirmed. That's what, as I understand it.
Right. So who does he belong to at the moment?
Atletico Madrid.
Thank you very much. So you shut your fat gob, okay?
There's no need to get abusive.
I'm sorry, but when you try to publicly put me down like that and tell me that the facts I've given you are incorrect facts, I can get quite riled. I
can see that. Yeah. Maybe you could write another poem about it.
Yeah. Here, a tin of tomatoes here, mate, and smashed over your head.
Loving the poetry, by the way.
Such an unbelievable.
Well,
here's one from.
Mine was surreal, by the way. Not a silly nursery rhyme like old Levine there behind the glass.
Here's one from Dave from Leighton Buzzard who's texted. He says that he's got a poem. He says, there once was a speed camera on the M62 that took a picture of me as I went speeding through.
Oh, I like that. Quite like that.
Remember the M62? Doesn't exist, does it?
Except Pal.
The M62 doesn't exist.
What's the name of the guy?
Dave.
The M62 does exist, of course it does.
Yeah, well, we've been
what was I going to say?
It
doesn't take a picture of you because it takes a picture of the back of your car. So unless you're sitting back to front in your car and driving with the back of your head, it doesn't take a picture of you. But it's a nice little line. I liked it. Better than. You
don't have to try and rubbish everybody just because your poem was so useless.
Why don't we get on with some transfer news?
Let's have some more transfers out of the Times.
I'd like to hear some more rhyming couplets. But no, back to the transfer stuff. And a story that will interest you, Mr. Parry. Roberto Martinez is now going to be Everton boss until 2019. So great first season for him. I should think you'd agree, and the future looks bright for you lot.
Well, you know why they've done that, don't they?
Because
he was sitting next to Alan Brazil on the plane over to Brazil, okay? And I reckon Brazil has landed in Rio, got on the phone to Bill Kenwright, the Everton chairman, and said, he's a good man. I reckon Brazil's done it for him. Don't you?
Brazil sealed the deal.
I think so.
Is that
so, Mike?
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Well, perhaps it was the other way around. Maybe it was Brazil who convinced Martinez that he should actually sign the deal because he was maybe wavering. Because maybe we know Roberto Martinez is quite an ambitious young man, and he might think that Everton's not the last stopping point for him.
Maybe Brazil said to him, Mr. Martinez, you're going to be fine because I happen to know that Mr. Kenwright, the chairman of your club, is heavily advised and influenced by a pal of mine, old Porky Parry. So you're on a winner. Yeah. And I reckon that could have swayed it.
But well, I don't disagree. There was talk at one point he could have gone to Spurs, but I think that would have been a really bad thing to do. The loyalty that Kenwright's shown Roberto Martinez, it's a
tough one, I suppose, for Martinez is going to be keeping hold of Ross Barkley, isn't it?
Yes, I should imagine it will be
if he features heavily at the World Cup.
Well, even if he
doesn't, he's going to be a great player of the future. I mean, everybody keeps telling us that. This won't be his moment, the World Cup, but he will rise to prominence in the qualifiers for the next European Championships, which of course start in September.
You could buy what's his name back, couldn't you, Fellaini, and make a £20 million profit.
I've got a feeling, right, that Fellaini could return to Everton, but also probably even more certainly that old Jack, what's his name, will come back from Manchester City.
Rodwell.
Yeah, Rodwell. Yeah. And do you know what? If you look at the deals that Everton have done for their so-called star players, they have made a fortune. Lescott, 28 million, is now on a free transfer. Jack Rodwell, 16.5 million. You get him back for half of that. Fellaini, get him back for half of that. And what about the business with Rooney? We've taken over £30 million off Manchester United for Rooney.
And a lot of that business was done by David Moyes as well.
No, it was all done by Mr. Kenwright.
Was it?
He does all the...
But hang on, David Moyes actually did Everton a favour by buying Fellaini for such a ridiculous amount of money, and now maybe making it possible for them to make money and get him back.
amazingly, David Moyes walked into the Everton boardroom and said, "I've spotted this player in Belgium," and it was a record signing, £16.5 million quid.
At that point,
and he was 19, and nobody had ever heard of him. But he turned out to be great for Everton, not so great for United. We sold him for 26, might get him back for 12. So you're right.
It could be good business. And we should mention Sami Hyypiä as well. He was presented as the Brighton and Hove Albion head coach at their new £27 million training ground yesterday. I don't know whether he's still signed a deal or not, but apparently he's going to be the new Brighton manager.
That's astonishing to me, that. Has he ever managed anybody else?
Well, no, it doesn't seem
wasn't
so.
he from Bayer Leverkusen, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's
He
a
was
really...
manager of Bayer Leverkusen,
Did he?
wasn't he?
I didn't know he was.
Yeah, I thought he was.
I think he was certainly on the coaching
I
staff
thought
there.
that was his first job, actually.
No, he was manager of Bayer Leverkusen.
But the point is, he's not a player.
Leverkusen.
He's played at the top level in English football, but he's
Yeah.
not coached at the top level. And you know, Brighton are the sort of club where they will be a Premier League outfit one day. They've got the stadium, they've got the infrastructure, they've got the finance, they've got everything. But I'm not convinced he's the right coach to take them up. I mean, you know, Gus Poyet, when he came into Brighton, they were very, very near the bottom of League One, and he got them out of a relegation scrap. He took them to the... And you look how well he's done at Sunderland. I'm not convinced Hyypiä is the right man, but we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah, I don't think Hyypiä's the right man, only because he's untried and untested.
No,
you
he
know?
was manager in the Bundesliga, for heaven's sake.
Are you sure about
Yes,
this?
he was sacked in April.
For about a year, but yeah, that's right. Actually, it was
He
about a
was
year.
in the
about 12
Champions
months.
League with
Well,
Bayer
if he was
Leverkusen.
sacked from a team in the Bundesliga, then
Yeah.
it proves he's not very good, doesn't it?
Well, he's got some experience managing the Champions League.
I
so-
don't get it why clubs take on managers rejected by other clubs, because to me they've got failure written all over their forehead. You know, I'm a failure, but I'm coming to your club to help you fail. I mean, that's my philosophy.
You
Okay?
could get a badge like that. Good morning, you're listening to Extra Time with Mike Graham and Mike Parry. We're keeping you entertained throughout the night. The World Cup, of course, is back right here on TalkSport. We've waited 4 years for the single most brilliant celebration of football on the planet, and last night it was all about Brazil.
Rakitic has lost it here. Oscar makes his way forward. His shot goes in. Game, set, and match, Brazil. Oscar with the goal on the counter-attack. Brazil off to a winning start in 2014. But boy, have they had some luck on the way.
Oscar's third goal put the icing on the cake in Sao Paulo, but Brazil have proved luck can be the biggest helper of all when it comes to the World Cup finals. Tonight, it's Mexico, Cameroon, Spain, Holland and Chile, Australia. All live commentaries right here on TalkSport. 08717 223344. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking crop circles. We're going to be talking Portuguese language as well. We've got a quiz for Porky Parry. And, of course, we'll be taking some more information from you on poetry, because poetry, unless it rhymes, according to Porky, isn't any good.
I fell in love with an alien being whose skin was jelly, whose teeth were green, big bug eyes, a death ray glare, feet like water wings, purple hair. I was over the moon, I asked her back to my place, and then I married the monster from outer space. The days were numbered, the nights were spent in a rent-free furnished oxygen sensor. Cyborg chef serves up moonbeams, done super rapid on the laser beam. I need a nutrition to keep up the pace when I married a monster from outer space. Each time I see a translucent face, I remember the monster from outer space. Hey. Nice one, nice one, nice
What do you make of that then?
Well, that to me was a lot of rambling rubbish, to be honest.
Well, it rhymed, though.
I know the words rhyme, but you couldn't really tell they rhymed. That was just a dirge. That was just some
was
guy
brilliant.
beating a
Do
drum.
you even know who that was?
No,
It was John Cooper Clarke, the punk poet.
I've never heard of him.
You never heard of John Cooper
Never
Clarke?
heard of John Cooper Clarke, and
Like a nightclub in the morning, you're the bitter end.
I'm
Like a recently disinfected toilet, you'll clean round the bend. That was another one of his.
well,
Which is pretty apt for you.
That is smutty toilet humour, which I don't subscribe to anyway.
It's poetry.
So it is not poetry.
Well,
Just
here's some
garbage,
views on your
garbage.
poetry, right?
Go on, then.
Ian
Yeah.
in Wigan says,
Yeah.
Porky, we all know what rhymes with light. I think you know what he's talking about. Here's one from James in Harlow. The Pork Laureate, terrible. By the way, The Long and Winding Road is on the Let It Be album. And here's one from, where is it? Wayne, who says, he says the next line should be, and this poem is a load of... because it rhymes with light.
Why do people always revert to these sort of smutty, insults when all I'm trying to do is improve their lives? Introduce a bit of culture into the lives of our listeners, and what do I get? A load of abuse by reverse.
Yes, a lot of people have also been mentioned. You've got it completely wrong about the Beatles, but that's another story.
No, I haven't. I've got an original Let It Be album, right?
Yeah.
It came in a box with a magnificent magazine type thing, a book with it, right? And I can tell you, Let It Be is not on that.
Well, I'll tell you what. When you get home this morning,
must
right?
have been remastered.
You take a picture of the track list and you send it in, and you send it out on Twitter this morning.
I don't know if I've still got that album. To be honest. Yeah, I'm not sure if I've still got it. Yeah.
A bit like your picture of you and Bill Clinton.
No, I've got, of course I've got a copy of Let It Be in the house. I've got a copy of every Beatles album. Right. But
why don't you take out your copy of Let It Be, take a picture of the track list?
Because I'm not sure I've got the original one that I'm talking to you about, which was like a black vinyl.
So you're claiming...
The ones I've got these days are all on DVD.
So you're claiming it was added later when it was made into a CD?
It must have been, because it wasn't on my original one. I'm telling you, I never heard The Long and Winding Road until about a year after Let It Be came out. McCartney issued his first single...
I think you've gone mad.
Album. It was called McCartney. The opening track was...
Never mind what the opening track was. Here's what Steve from Sheffield says. Morning, Mike. Well, we can look it up, There is such a thing as iTunes.
Yeah.
The Long and Winding Road was on the Beatles album Let It Be, not on the McCartney album McCartney.
It was on the McCartney album McCartney, because the first review of the McCartney album McCartney said there's only one decent track on here, and that is The Long and Winding Road. The long and winding
Well, it's becoming a long and winding story that you've got completely wrong. Les the Arsenal fan. Here's another one. Les the Arsenal fan. Stop it. Yeah. Porky Parry, the track The Long and Winding Road is on the Let It Be album, and your poetry is not poetry, it's a limerick, you numpty. And Alan in Bognor Regis says, please tell Porky Parry he's a numpty and give up putting words together. I can't even say the word.
Seems to be a lot of abuse flying around out there at the moment, and I can only put it down to the fact it's Friday the 13th, it's a full moon, and a lot of you people are letting your aggression surface tonight in an area where in the past you have been understanding about my suppressed talent emanating through this microphone.
Here's one from John in Durham, who's made one up of his own. The big yellow box is a sly little fox, but look at your Speedo or you will be foxed. What do you make of that?
Rubbish.
Rubbish.
Utter rubbish.
Mike, Porky is wrong. Some speed cameras take pictures from the front, so they can prove who's driving, but as usual, he'll claim he's right.
No, there are infrared ones. In fact, there's one down in Gosport, actually. We've been talking about Gosport tonight because the mayor allegedly so drunk he's banned from every pub in... Mayor and the mayoress banned from every pub in town.
Milky in Kent, this is a good poem that he's written. He sent this into 81089 on the text. Porky the Tomato King loves tomatoes from a tin. His arms are so short, he always gets caught with his ginger-bearded mouth round the rim.
Well, that's a limerick.
That is a limerick, but it's not bad. I quite like it.
It's all right.
Anyway, let's talk about another story that,
let's do
I noticed. I was watching one of the breakfast shows yesterday morning when I got home, and I was astonished to see, as there often is on the BBC, this very, very kind of earnest conversation going on between three people, three guests and the presenter, all about how obesity should now be classified as a disability.
Not
only that, but that obesity is actually not only is it a disease, but it's now an addiction. It should be classified as an addiction in the same way that drug addiction and alcohol addiction is treated. And so basically what they're saying is that people who are obese may get disabled status in the workplace.
It's unbelievable, Mike. And we talked about this on the phone, and I went and had a look and see what it's all about. They're actually thinking of giving obese people... Now, can we just make this absolutely clear? Whilst you and I have empathy and sympathy with people who have physical problems, those who pile those physical problems on themselves deserve less sympathy than somebody who's suffering from, for instance, spina bifida or something like that.
Well,
to try and class fatness, which is basically what it is, because you eat too much and drink too much.
Self-inflicted, normally.
Self-inflicted. And to try and classify that with somebody who was born with some sort of inherent disability is actually wicked. It's extremely wicked and it's stupid. And the idea that you give somebody who's fat a disabled sticker so they can park closer to the entrance of a supermarket than somebody who parks farther away is in fact hampering their ability to lose weight. Because what you should say to them is you should say, no, actually, we've got special bays for the fatties, not the obese. They're 2 miles away from the entrance to the supermarket, and you walk 2 miles from your car to here. You carry all your shopping back in plastic bags only. We're not going to give you a trolley, and by the time you get back to your car, you'll have lost £3.
Or maybe they might buy a little bit less as well, because it'll be easier to carry smaller bags.
Exactly.
But the problem for employers, there are two problems as far as I'm concerned. genuinely disabled people are going to be discriminated
course
against
they are.
because they're going to find it more difficult to park.
That's
they're
right.
going to find it more difficult to
right.
get a blue badge for their car.
That is right.
Which are apparently quite hard to get now anyway. They're also going to find it more difficult in employment as well, because if employers are going to have to take account of having to make sure that there's somehow uniformity about who they hire, they'll have to hire somebody who's obese in order to show that they're not discriminating against them. I mean, it's create all sorts of problems. There's a test case apparently going on in the European Court of guess what, justice and human rights, and which may make this an absolute law in this country.
And guess what? If it's a small company and they say, well, we fulfilled our quota of disabled employees, and that disabled employee is an obese person who's classed as then what you're basically doing is closing the door for somebody who's genuinely disabled who needs a job and doesn't get one. Somebody who's wheelchair bound for other reasons because, as I say, they've got spina bifida or they have some inherent horrible problem, and that is a most disgusting situation in which we are now classifying excess as a disease, and it's not. It's greed. But fat people, I mean, when we were at school, Mark, I know your parents always told you this, there was always a fat kid in the class. In our class, his name was Colin Jordan. He was a lovely lad, but he was much bigger than the rest of us. He was the class fatty, right? And his father was a doctor, actually, which is quite surprising, really, isn't it? To have such a fat child. But anyway, the point of my story is that my mum and dad always used to say, oh, well, it's nothing to do with what he eats, it's to
his
do...
glands, they used to say.
Thank you very much. It's his glands. So I grew up thinking that some people who were fat actually couldn't help it. They had glandular problems.
Which may be true of some cases.
Well, I bet you it's 1% of people who are fat who've got glandular problems. Mostly it was because he just ate too many cream buns when he got home at night after school, and his mother used to, some parents think that having a son who's a fatty makes him a real man and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and
really?
Hey?
Really?
Yeah, they do, they do, honestly. Feed me boy up and all that kind of stuff, gets fat. My answer to obesity, and you and I should start a campaign, the two mics against fatness, right?
I think there'd be a certain irony about that.
The two mics against fat... Yeah, no. As we get older...
we're both not considered to be exactly silk-like,
as you get older, your muscles get looser and you do gain weight. That's something you do. But I'm talking about younger people who are so fat that they waddle around and they buy mobility scooters because they're too damned idle and fat and lazy to actually walk around. We should start a campaign against that, and we should be looking to help those who really are disabled.
Video.
Sorry?
Maybe you could do a fitness video.
Maybe you should do a fitness video. If it'll bring a bit of attention to the whole problem, why not? But the only way that you can turn yourself from being obese into being a normal person who's of use to society is to eat less and drink less and exercise. And if you did those three things, you fatties would become thinnies overnight. It's just that you haven't got the discipline, you haven't got the self-control, you haven't got the willpower, and you've got the nanny state on your side now telling you it's not your fault, it's all down to the fact that you've got some sort of addictive illness. Oh, yeah.
Maybe you should go on a tomato diet as well. That would be
go
good.
on the tomato diet. You'd lose a lot of weight. That's one reason I'm going on it.
Well,
I need to lose a bit more
see
weight.
how much
I've got
weight you can lose.
I've got a bit of loose summer muscle flapping around at the moment. I'm going to get rid of it.
That's too much information. Coming up next, we're going to have a Portuguese quiz for Mr. Parry. Extra time. We are the two Mikes. Mike Porky Parry's here, and it's time for his weekly quiz, something that we do on a regular basis here on a Thursday night going into a Friday morning. It's Friday the 13th, so maybe you'll get lucky on this one, because I think the highest score you've managed to make is about...
Well,
50%
I don't even know
quiz.
why I've submitted myself to a test on Portugal. I don't know anything about Portugal. I've never told you I was a Portuguese expert.
You told me at the beginning of the show that when Phil Scolari spoke in Portuguese, when you were following him around in Portugal before he didn't take the England job, that you knew exactly what he was saying because you're a student of language.
Body language, I said. I meant to say body language.
I see.
I can't understand Portuguese as well as I understand Spanish because it's a dialect of Spanish, but
it's not a dialect of Spanish.
I knew from
from
the facial expressions of Big Phil, hey, Big Phil, and his body language and his drooped shoulders and his seemingly...
No, you're just trying to wriggle on the hook again.
No, I'm not trying to wriggle on any hook.
Portuguese is not a Spanish dialect. It is a completely separate language. And you know why we're giving you...
It's very similar.
It's not actually similar at all, because one of the things that I found listening to this quiz was that I've got a sort of sprinkling of Spanish. I didn't recognise any of this because it's completely different.
If you say so.
And of course, if you know a bit about Spanish, which you also claim to do, you'll
Yes.
be able to get some of these right.
Right, well, come on. I
we've got
don't fear
5
this test. I'm just letting the audience know in advance that once again I've been hijacked here. I've never claimed to be an expert on Portugal. I have been to Portugal. I did the 2004 European Championships there. I've been on holiday to Faro. Is it Faro?
Faro.
Faro.
On the Algarve.
And Valdemora, is it? Villa de
You're thinking
Mora?
of Villamora.
Villamora, been
Or
down there.
Valdelobo.
Valdelobo, played a bit of golf around
Have
there.
you? They let you play golf at Valdelobo.
Sorry?
Did they let you play golf at Valdelobo?
I'm not sure if it was the Valdelobo course, but it was down in that part of the world.
No, I was going to say,
Well, it
I'd
was Mr.
be
Brazil.
amazed if they let you on there.
Yeah, really? Yeah, well, you'd
why
be amazed
not?
about a lot of things. Right, let's
Not the
get
way
on
you
with
play
it.
golf. All right,
Let's
we have
get on with it.
5 pieces of Portuguese phrases that we'd like you to interpret.
Oh,
and,
this is rubbish.
Why?
What are you going to ask me? You're going to ask me about the Portuguese language? I told you I don't understand the Portuguese language.
Well, these are all football-based phrases which you may or may not have come across in your
I thought you
time.
were going to ask me, for instance, who was the architect who built the bridge that separates Oporto.
This is not about Portugal.
Oporto,
It's not about Portugal.
Oporto from the mainland, and of course it was built by the same guy who painted the Mona Lisa.
Who was whom? Who
Who
painted the Mona Lisa?
And he invented the helicopter.
Who was that?
I'm just trying to remember. Hang on a second. It was. Well, you know who it is, so tell me.
Was it Michelangelo?
No.
Was it Leonardo da Vinci?
Leonardo da Vinci, of course. Leonardo da Vinci. Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel roof.
I just thought you might have been confused.
No, I'm not
All right.
confused.
Anyway, this is not about the Portuguese, okay? This
What
is
is it
about
then?
the Portuguese language because where else in the world do they speak Portuguese?
Brazil.
And that's why we're doing the quiz, because the World Cup has just started.
I've been suckered again.
You have not been suckered. We've got 5 phrases.
Right, come on.
Here is the first one.
Right.
Have a listen.
Este jogador é bom pra caramba.
Now, it's football related, as all of these phrases are.
Yeah.
Would you like to have a pop at that?
That was about offside.
Was it?
Yeah.
Let's hear it again. No, it's wrong. Let's hear it again.
Este jogador é bom pra caramba.
Now, jogador is not dissimilar to the Spanish word.
Jogador.
It's something you would say, if you want to clue, it's something you would say about Ronaldo.
Star. Superstar.
No, but the word jogador is player, right? This player is fantastically good, is the answer.
This player is fantastically good.
Okay, fine.
So that's none out of 1. Number 2, please.
O meia está passando a bola.
Pass the ball to me.
It's not bad.
Yeah, see?
You could get half
Wrong
a
on
point.
so many levels.
You could get half a point for that.
Oh, yeah.
Let's hear the real answer.
The midfielder is passing the ball.
Yeah, well, that's it.
I think we're giving half a point for that. Half out of 2. Let's hear the next one, number 3.
Boa cabeçada.
No, that's a shorter one.
No, that's good ball. That means good pass, good ball, good direction. That's what it means.
That's almost correct.
Yeah,
There's another half a point there.
No, I'll get a point for that.
Let's hear the answer.
Good header.
Thank you.
Brilliant! This is drama in the extreme.
Thank you.
So you got one out of 3. I'll give you so far.
That's absolute rubbish
That's
because
good.
when I
You're doing
said
better than you thought.
good ball, good
Well,
pass.
good ball, good pass.
Yeah.
It's not the same as good header, is it?
Yeah, well, you know, I think you're a bit of a header. Yeah, go
Number
on.
4.
A grande área.
That's a bit easy, that one.
A grande anja.
You want to hear it again?
Great goal.
A grande área.
I think the second word is not that different from the English.
Let me hear it again, please.
A grande área.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you.
Sounds like a grungy area. Sounds like a description of your penthouse.
Penalty area.
Penalty area, very good.
Thank you.
Oh,
done.
brilliant! This is drama in the extreme.
The penalty area.
That's 2 out of 4 then.
Because I know what a grungy means. A grungy means
Penalty.
not within the law. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. It's,
All right, final one. You could get 3 out of 5 if you get this one right.
Não aguento ver.
This is quite a hard one. I'll give you a hint on this one. This might be something you would say if you were watching, for example, Everton getting knocked out of the League Cup a couple of years ago by Brentford.
Right. Not very good.
No, nowhere near. Really.
Yeah. It means what a surprise.
No,
Not very good.
no,
Oh, I know. A giant killing.
no,
It's a giant killing.
no. You're going down 2 route 1 on that.
And it's
Não aguento ver.
yeah, bad result.
I can't bear to watch.
I can't bear to watch. Well, I've never
I can't bear to watch.
I've never had a situation I can't bear to watch you. I can't bear to watch you composing these ridiculous quizzes, and
a lot of people can't bear to listen to your ridiculous answers. So I think you should now.
I just told everybody I was an expert. Huh?
Well, if would you like to hear what you actually said at the top of the show?
Yeah,
would you like to hear that?
Yeah.
Go on, then.
Portuguese. Yeah, that's right.
Well,
Exactly.
you'd have been all right with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
You'd been a man
I'd have been all right.
many languages.
I'd have been all right with that. I'd have understood that. Yes,
I'd have been all right with that. I'd have understood it.
I've
That
sort of
wasn't
like
about
body
body language.
language.
That was about Portuguese. You said you knew about Portuguese.
Yeah, you seem to take great joy in trying to sort of unmask me as you think you are in front of the
I
audience.
don't want to do that.
I think
that would be too horrible for most people.
I think the audience have got a little bit more intelligence than you give them credit for, Mike, and they understand exactly what you're up to. To mask your own inefficiencies, you think, I'll try and make a fool of Porky on the show tonight. And, of course, you consistently fail.
Yes, well, here's another one from Rob Clark in Walsall. Please tell Porky Parry Long and Winding Road is track 10 on the Let It Be album. And everybody else who seems to be saying that.
Well, it wasn't when it was first released.
Well, you might as well just give it up. Dan in Liverpool says this. Tell Fat Boy Parry to pipe down. You should never employ a manager sacked by another club, eh? Brendan Rodgers, sacked by Reading, has done a pretty good job at the great club on Merseyside. And also slating Sammy Hippier, take off your blue-tinted glasses, Porky. Remember, you're always in our show.
I've looked up Sam Hippier's record, by the way, and you're right about Bayer Leverkusen, who he managed to take from 7th in the Bundesliga to just above the relegation.
He didn't do well there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So why have Brenton taken him on? He's a failed manager who got sacked by another club for taking them down the league, not up the league.
Yeah, well,
so what is the thinking? What's the thinking? Just because he played for Liverpool,
but you
when Liverpool weren't a very good team.
You suggested that he didn't have any kind of managerial experience. I'm just saying that he managed a team in the Bundesliga who were pretty high up in the Bundesliga and who were in the Champions League.
But I was very nearly right, because he went...
Very nearly right is the same as wrong.
No, it's not. He went to Bayer Leverkusen as a player, and he started off as player manager and then became full-time manager. So I was, in fact, right.
How were you right? You said he had no managerial experience.
Well, no, I didn't. What I said was he's never been independently appointed solely as a manager at any club before. That's what I meant to say.
Do we have to replay what you said?
No.
Or are you going to tell me what you meant to say?
No, that's exactly what I wanted the audience to interpret, as I said. Okay?
I see.
Anyway, enough of this.
Excellent. Well, coming up, what we're going to do now is talk to an excellent expert in crop circles, because you might remember that last week you said crop circles were caused by aliens.
I didn't say that at all.
Yes, you
I
did.
said that initially I think there could have been some outside influence in the crop circles, and that once the first ones appeared, then local people in Wiltshire who inhabit
the pub
called the Barge started going out and imitating the crop circles.
So who do you think made the first crop circle?
Well, I don't know. I think it could have been a phenomenon of weather or something like that. Maybe
you said aliens.
Well, it depends who starts typhoons. It could be like a wind-based typhoon blowing down onto the field. It could be
who starts them.
It could be. Well, I don't know who starts them. You know,
maybe it's that HARP weapon that the Americans have got.
It's the atmospherics of the countryside, I think.
Right. Well, glad we cleared that one up. Coming up next, Mike Porky Parry and a crop circle expert. That should be quite fascinating. This is TalkSport.
Crazy, but that's how it goes. Millions of people living as hoes. Yeah, but maybe.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. He is Mike Parry. Something very mysterious is happening at the moment, Mike, because, you know, we were saying it is Friday the 13th, and I don't know whether you're superstitious at all, but we were saying about how there are more accidents on the roads on Friday the 13th
there are.
at the top of the show.
There definitely are.
Because of this sunstorm that's coming our way, it might well be that some sat-nav machines don't work as well, or sat-nav devices, I should say, not really machines. Phones might not work. You might not get the internet as well as you would. We were going to talk to a guy about crop circles, but guess what? His phone's going to answer phone.
No.
What do you make of that? You think he might have been abducted?
Listen, I'm just wondering if there's something else connected with this, right, which is very, very public. And now, Harrison Ford, we have understood, been injured on the set. But we didn't
on the set of the new Star Wars film.
Set of the new Star Wars film, which is in Boreham Wood, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But do you know how he actually got injured?
No.
And I wonder if this is a Friday the 13th, solar stars that you were talking about.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? Solar flares or something like that?
Flares, yeah.
And full moon and all that. And guess how he sustained his injury?
Wasn't it something to do with a door?
He was crushed by the hydraulic door of the legendary Star Wars spaceship.
Wow.
How about that?
What, the Millennium Falcon?
Well, yeah, the Millennium Falcon. That's right. So what I'm saying is,
You've never heard of it, have you?
Yes, I have.
You looked completely blank when I said the Millennium Falcon.
No, I had to think for a second because the Millennium Stadium I used to go to watch England play when Wembley was closed down. But that's another story.
Yeah, doesn't look anything like the Millennium Falcon.
No, it doesn't. No, but what I'm saying
right in
is,
the middle of Cardiff.
Don't you think that's spooky? That as we're talking about, solar, sun flares, Friday the 13th, full moons, and all that. Something that was once mythical, i.e. the Star Wars spaceship,
it's still mythical,
has actually crushed old Harrison Ford's leg.
Yeah, I know.
It's amazing.
He's got a suspected broken ankle. Apparently, he was airlifted from the studios to a hospital.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be okay. He said he was clutching his chest. I think it's on a couple of the front pages this morning, and I think
he crushed his ankle. Why was he clutching his chest?
Well, I think because his chest was slightly hurt as well. But it says in the story that he hasn't sustained any serious chest injuries. I think he's going to be okay. But I think he's going to be out of action for a while. They might have to postpone whatever filming they were going to do.
Ford was crushed by the door as he began shooting scenes for Star Wars Episode 7 at Pinewood Studios in Buckinghamshire. So it's not Borehamwood then, is it?
I thought it was Borehamwood.
Yeah, I thought it was. Anyway.
It's Pinewood.
Right, here we go. Reports last night said the door belonged to the Millennium Falcon. Okay, so I do know all about it, right?
No, you're now reading out of the paper.
No, I'm not.
You've spent an awful lot of time tonight just reading stuff out of the paper.
No, I'm reading reports from the scene.
All right, well, tell me this then.
The spaceship, his character Han Solo flies in the original trilogy of the sci-fi movie.
Well, since you know all about the Millennium Falcon, perhaps you can tell me how Han Solo obtained the Millennium Falcon.
I've never seen a Star Wars film.
So you don't know then?
Well, I suppose
it's okay to admit you don't know.
He nicked it off some other space traveller, did he?
No, he won it.
Won it in what, in a card game?
Yeah.
Really?
Do you know who he won it from?
Obi Kobe Tubi, or whatever his name is. What is the guy's name?
Lando Calrissian.
Who's he?
He was another sort of space pirate, basically.
Well, where were they playing this? Where were they playing this card game? In a boozer, like an intergalactic boozer?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, what were they drinking?
I've no idea.
Were they drinking stuff? Were they drinking whiskey or something like that?
No, because you never actually saw the card game going on. You just found out through the course of the story that's how he got the ship.
I wonder if in years to come, whether booze will just be eradicated and we all just take one pill, you know what I mean? And, you either take a 2-pint pill, a 4-pint pill, a 6-pint pill,
well,
a 3-bottle of Pinot Grigio pill.
Didn't we talk a few weeks ago about that powdered alcohol?
Powdered alcohol?
Because it didn't get licensed in America,
That's right.
did it?
That's right.
So you're supposed to just sprinkle it on your cornflakes.
Sprinkle it on your cornflakes, sprinkle it on your ham sandwich and all that kind of stuff. Do you not remember the film
You can sprinkle it on your tomatoes.
Barbarella? Yeah, I'll sprinkle it on my tomatoes.
Barbarella, yeah, Jane Fonda.
Barbarella. And she had sex.
Roger Vadim.
Yeah, she had sex with David What's-his-name, who was the up-and-coming actor of the day. You remember the guy I'm talking about?
David Niven?
No, he was in Blowout as well, which was a very famous film in the 60s. David Hemmings.
Yeah.
And they had sex together with a pill. They didn't actually engage in physical...
She also got
intercourse.
into a machine called the Orgasmatron, I seem to remember.
So something like that. That's right. Yeah. And
why are you bringing that up?
Well, because I'm just thinking that you've just told me now that Han Solo, in the form of Harrison Ford, won his spaceship off another guy over a drunken game of cards in an intergalactic boozer. Whether they actually will have whiskey in 1,000 years' time when intergalactic boozers are popular, or whether you will just simply be, you walk in and suddenly somebody zaps you and oh, that was great, that was 3 pints of bitter, and then next order you say, can I have a large glass of Pinot Grigio, please?
The only problem with your theory...
And they zap you with a large Pinot.
I don't know why everything with you revolves around drink, but I was actually going to ask you a different question, but before I do that, Star Wars is not actually set in the future, you do know that, don't you?
Where's it set then?
It's set in a long, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Okay, so are we saying that actually, like the dinosaurs, it all got too sophisticated and blew itself up?
Yeah, presumably.
Right, I see.
But that's why it's fiction, you see.
By the way, do you see the size of that latest dinosaur they found in South America? It is literally the size of...
What is?
The latest dinosaur they found, the dinosaur bones they found in South America.
The latest dinosaur?
Yeah, no, latest dinosaur bones.
Yeah.
It's as big as a 12-storey high building.
Is it?
It is
like Godzilla, literally.
Yeah, an enormous, massive creature. And don't you remember, there's a picture of the scientist lying alongside the femur bone of the leg of the dinosaur. And
I didn't see that.
And that bone, which is one of 3 bones in the leg, was 6 feet long, the size of the scientist.
Yeah.
amazing.
It is
To think
amazing.
that animals like that used to roam the earth.
Yeah. You should go to the Natural History Museum and check out some of the dinosaurs they got there.
By the way, I meant to
I
say...
took my kids there not long ago. It was great.
I meant to say to you, near me, they're knocking down a car park, okay?
Yeah.
It's about, like...
You sure this is not the mayor's idea?
Oh, no, this is not the mayor's idea. No,
This put up a pub that you could go to.
No, this is in Surrey. This is not in Gosport. And in, you know, we talk sometimes about the wrecking ball being played. There's no wrecking balls anymore. The last time I saw a wrecking ball was in an old episode of The Sweeney.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't have wrecking balls. What they have now
They look quite dangerous, those things.
Yeah, they look a bit dangerous. What they have now is they have like pecking machines. So these great massive machines, you know, and the arm is like on 3 different stages.
Yeah.
They literally just bash the building.
Yes, I've seen that, yeah.
You see what I mean? It's like punching.
Well, it seems a bit more controlled, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a bit more controlled, but also it's got a jaw on the end, you know. So it's got like is it a Velociraptor or something? One of those dinosaurs.
Velociraptor.
Velociraptor who had huge jaws and flew.
But they weren't so tall. There was only they used to work in sort of pairs and threes.
Okay, but anyway, they literally on the end of this punching machine they have jaws like that, so they punch
Has it got teeth?
Well, it almost has. I mean, you could paint a face on it to make it look like a dinosaur, and the kids would laugh like mad. You know what I mean? Because it punches the wall first, and then when the wall's weakened, it then opens its jaws, goes in and grabs the wall and pulls it down.
Yeah.
It's spectacular. I was transfixed watching it for about 20 minutes the other day when I was driving past before I went home, and it is absolutely fascinating to see why they get rid of buildings these days. They actually eat them. These machines eat these eat the buildings. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So I'd let you know that.
Yeah,
you know?
thanks very much indeed.
Okay.
You get so much information that you never thought that you would need on this show. He's Mike Parry, I'm Mike Graham, of course. More coming up next on TalkSport.
We're going to the World Cup in Brazil. Come on!
My mate Trevor, never very clever. First night in Rio, lost in a favela. Felt he was in danger, right up until a rude boy in a Rooney shirt said, "Welcome to Brazil." Yeah, 4 beers later, they were having a barbecue. Brazil, we might not have the strongest team that the World Cup's ever seen, but we still come here to dream. Brazil, you know we were the first to play. What became your greatest game? Our name's still on the tools remain.
This is TalkSport's World Cup song, and it's out now. Welcome to Brazil, featuring the TalkSport All-Stars. It's available to buy online through iTunes, Amazon, Google Play and Spotify for just 99p. So buy it now to cheer on Roy's boys in Brazil and lift TalkSport into the charts.
She's called Adric. Brazil, we might not have the strongest team that the World Cup's ever seen, but we still come here to dream.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is here, of course. The World Cup is underway. We've waited a very long time for it. I think what we saw last night between Brazil and Croatia bodes very well for the rest of the tournament, Mike, because if you remember, you were down in South Africa. The opening game of that World Cup was dire, wasn't it? And also, do you remember those awful vuvuzelas that nobody's really mentioning anymore?
I was listening
I'm surprised you haven't got still that sound buzzing in your ears.
I was listening to Ray Wilkins on the Breakfast Show yesterday with to Al, who's over in Rio, obviously, and when Al said, you know, what's the best thing about this competition that is different in South Africa? He said the vuvuzelas. He said drove me mad. He said literally took the edge off the football altogether for me. There was such a distraction.
It was a terrible noise, wasn't
and
it?
I think it was a terrible noise. It was a cacophony, and you couldn't make any sense of it, you know. So yeah, I totally agree. Different atmosphere altogether. So to
I think
speak.
it's going to be great. The England game, of course, comes up tomorrow night. I'm going to be asking you where you're going to watch that in a second. It's 11 o'clock kick-off, of course, live right here on TalkSport.
Yeah, that's right. And everybody I've seen talking about it so far in the build-up said it was so essential to get a dramatic and interesting and adventurous and exciting game to kick it off, because they had to take away from all the problems in Brazil with riots and all this kind of stuff, and start making it focus on the football, which is what it did.
Which I think it did, and obviously Brazil won, and so everybody was happy. But Matt's a Liverpool fan in Avonmouth. He wants to talk about referees from different leagues, I think. Matt, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Morning, Mike, and morning, Mike. How are you both doing? Right?
Yeah, very well, Matt.
Well, as usual, my head's about to explode after having spent 3 hours in the company of Mr. Parry and his rather ridiculous ideas, you know.
Yeah, I thought it's feeling like a National Geographic this morning, like listening to you both, you know what I mean? It's either that. talking about wildlife and dinosaurs or tomatoes and different things that go on around the world. It's been very enlightening.
Yeah, well, it's we have a wide range of interests here, Matt, and we like to educate our listeners, so you'll come away from it a better person. I think you're going to give us an opinion on the referees at the World Cup, Matt, are you?
Well, basically what it is, see, I'm a truck driver and I've missed the game. It's the first opening game I've missed in years. But basically, Sports Shaft, mate, today, Matty McCorfin, with regards to some stuff, he even predicted the score and stuff like that.
Who predicted the score?
I predicted the score. I said it'd be 3-1.
Oh, did you? Man. Yeah. Okay, well, good for you.
But I got to reply off yourself anyway. But that's by and by anyway. But basically, it's this Japanese referee. But like the thing what I want to get my head round is, you know, where like you've got all these different referees from all over the countries and stuff like that.
Yes.
Now basically, there's a real book, isn't it, where they all should just come, what they should all learn from, and what they study and what they watch and stuff like that. A foul's a foul, offside, etc. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But how come different, like, all right, you know, different leagues and stuff like that.
Well, I'm not sure how it works with FIFA, Mike. You might know more than I do on this one, but I mean, presumably they select the referees from different parts of the world, right? So they take Oceania or whatever they used to call it. You know, they take South America. They take you know, CONCACAF.
Thing is, Matt, Japanese referees referee mostly in Japan and Southeast Asia, right? So what I'm saying is, this guy has had no experience of the sort of pressures that you experience in the Nou Camp. Or the Bernabeu, or Old Trafford, or anything like that, because he's not on the European rota of referees. So he suddenly goes to, you know, a pressure pot game like this. He's got players giving him the evil eye and all that, and he started panicking and making bad decisions.
Yeah, but referees are referees. Listen, they start off with it doesn't matter what from professional sportsmen that the refereeing. They referee kids matches. That's what I mean. It's a non-professional. It's not a profession. It's not a profession, is it? Really?
Well, they're trying to make it one.
Isn't it? Well, exactly. Do you know what I mean? And don't you think it's the call for? Because I think if this is going to be like the start of what this World Cup's going to be.
Well, I think that's always the issue, Matt, isn't it? And I take your point, and thanks for making it. And there's still time to take some more calls. 08717 22 3344. The problem is, and I mean, you know, Sepp Blatter has also been a problem in the lead up to this World Cup, and I think he was probably quite relieved that the game went off reasonably well. Everybody had a good time. Brazil did win, but at the end of the day, you know, the way that FIFA sets up the World Cup is if they just had, say, you know, international referees from Europe and they only used European referees, that would be a problem because the countries from other parts of the world would complain. And I mean, I don't take you. I take your point. I think I know what you're saying, but I don't think it's fair to say because he doesn't have the experience of refereeing these kind of games, because he must have, otherwise he wouldn't be there, right? He must have refereed qualifiers.
Well, he's refereed international games. That's the only criterion you need to be on the FIFA list.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
International games,
but he must have refereed qualifying games.
And the thing is, mate, it's not just the referee. Did you see the team of officials who lined up at the start of the game? They're all Japanese because they have to be, so they can communicate with each other.
Well, they all work in teams.
Yeah, of course they do.
The same way Premier League referees.
Of course they do. And when I saw, you know, 4 Japanese officials, and I'm really not being disrespectful to the nation Japan. Japan do a lot of things very well. They make a lot of television.
And Japan are at the World Cup, don't forget.
Yeah, exactly. They make a lot of motorbikes.
They make a lot of cars as well.
They make a lot of sushi. They make a lot of cars and all this kind of stuff. And you know, they're a thriving country.
But also,
I just don't think that they can possibly claim to have top class referees.
Well, if you've got a team playing from South American continent, a team playing from Europe, Croatia against Brazil, from where would you get a referee then?
It's not where you'd get a referee, it's where you would find a referee who's had the experience to do all this. And there's absolutely no reason why he can't be of European or South American denomination, but not of the country.
I don't agree.
Not of the country playing.
No, I don't agree, because you couldn't have an Argentinian referee refereeing a Brazil game, could you? You couldn't have a Chilean referee.
You could have a Venezuelan referee. You could have a Venezuelan or a Mexican referee.
I don't think you could.
Yes, you could.
No, because I think in the end there would be people who would accuse you of bias. And surely if the guy...
why couldn't you have had a French referee? Why couldn't you have had a French?
Because he's European.
And so what?
Well, so Croatia are in Europe.
Yeah, but Croatia are much completely different part of Europe to France.
No, of course they are. But my point is that
they're in the Balkans,
but
and the Balkans weren't even part of Europe until about 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, well, not part of the European Union, no, but they've always been on the European continent.
Yes, I know, but they were ruled by Russia, weren't they?
Well, yeah, before that they weren't, though, were they?
Yeah, well, they were until the wall went down, weren't they?
Yeah, but only since the Second World War, if you want to be pedantic about it.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to get a referee who's so old that like 97, who remembers the Balkans before the Second World War. So that's a ridiculous point.
The way that FIFA is structured, of course you're going to have a referee from Japan who's qualified. He could not be refereeing a game if he was not qualified.
What about a Scandinavian referee? Why couldn't you have had a Scandinavian referee?
That's also on the European continent.
Yeah, but it's a different part of Europe again, isn't it? You know, it's like a subcontinent of Europe.
But you see, the problem is that you're looking at this from a European perspective.
Yes.
Sepp Blatter and FIFA do not look at it. I'm not saying you're wrong. However, the way that FIFA operates, as we've seen in the most recent few weeks, is that, they believe football is a global game, truly. They believe that the African Confederation is just as important as the Asian Confederation, as the South American Confederation, as the European Confederation. Nobody's more important than anyone else. So under their rules, then having a Japanese referee is not a problem at all.
Well, I think it's crazy that, you've got to say you can't even have a man from the same continent. That is madness to me.
Well, I'm assuming that's why it was
What about
done
an
that way.
American referee? Because they play in big stadiums with lots of pressure and all that kind of stuff.
I wouldn't have thought an American referee's any more experienced than a Japanese.
I think you're probably right there.
Yeah. Now, what about this
Greek?
story?
A Greek referee.
Well, that's in Europe as well.
Yeah, but it's a different part of Europe, though.
Yeah, you don't seem to be getting my point. What about the stuff that we're seeing on the back pages this morning about how they're actually spraying the pitch in Manaus green in order to make it look better?
That's not new. They do that often. They do that at football stadiums
They did it.
all
I
over
know
the
they
world.
did it at Wembley.
Yeah, exactly. They did. Yeah, they do it at stadiums all over the world. I mean, the point is.
Well, do you think it's unfair that they're getting all this criticism then for having produced a terrible surface?
All I would say is we're reading headlines day before yesterday that this pitch was no better than a meadow,
cowfield,
which sheep could graze on. And then people started sending out tweets, jumping on a bandwagon. Oh, this looks like my local park pitch. Oh, no, it's not actually. It's the pitch England are playing and all that. But this is all done from afar.
Yeah.
When we actually get somebody like our own Ian Danter to go there and stand on a pitch, he says it's in remarkably good condition.
He said it was poor.
I thought he said it was flat and it looked like it was playable.
He said it's not as bad probably as it looked in the first pictures. However, he said it was a very poor surface for this level of football.
Well, I have no reason to doubt what he says at all. And
that was also what Matt Dickinson said from the Times when he was on talking to the guys on the sports bar. He said it was a very poor surface.
Well, I saw Gabby Logan talking on television on whatever channel she works for, and she said it's compared to what she expected to see. It's in not bad condition.
Well, certainly the one good thing for England is that they're the first game on it, because I think after the second and third game, you wouldn't want to be doing that. So where will you be watching this game from then? From your eyrie in Portsmouth?
No.
Sitting there having a drink with the mayor, or
no,
perhaps...
it will be Chez Paris à la Surrey, but not my place. It'll be the family mansion that we have down in deepest Surrey.
Oh, I don't think I've ever been there.
No, you haven't been there. No, I'm not sure I'll ever take you there. But anyway, point of the story is...
the point of the story, you're going to squeeze one more in before 5 o'clock.
This is my mother's birthday weekend.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, do send her my very best.
Thank you very much indeed. So we're all getting together, and it means that we're really going to have to pace ourselves on Saturday, because normally speaking, we'd be out at the pub at lunchtime.
You'd be bladdered by 7 o'clock.
Yeah, no, you're right. We'd have dinner, a few pre-dinner cocktails around 7 o'clock, dinner at 8 o'clock, and, more afters at 9 and 10 o'clock.
But now you've got to stay up till 11.
Well, absolutely. So we're restructuring the whole weekend around the England game,
You're going to
obviously.
miss the game, aren't you?
No way will I miss a game. No way will I miss a game. Honestly, I promise you, I'll watch every second of it, and we get the old big screen out and all watch it, and then we'll probably have a Sunday lunchtime celebration to celebrate my mother's birthday, which actually is on Sunday.
Excellent. Well, give her my best. Due to all the World Cup live action next week, we're not going to be here, but we'll be back for a special on Saturday night going into Sunday morning. Yeah. Not this Saturday, but the following Saturday.
That's right. So, folks, I just want to say, have a great first week of the World Cup. Unfortunately, Mike and myself, Mike, I'm not going to be with you next week. World Cup scheduling means that there's loads and tons of goodies on TalkSport. If you're going to tune in every evening, every night and every morning, we'll be back with you, as Mike says, a week tomorrow night.